Big Dumb Movie is a comedic podcast that often contains obscene language and outlandish commentary. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Big Dumb Movie, where we discuss movies of the horny variety. I'm your host, Korey, and I'm joined today with two men of the same name, just like on our Ghost podcast. First up is Steve. Say hello.
Hello, hello.
And next, Stevie from the Spoilers podcast. Say hi, Stevie.
Hello.
Thank you guys for being here. We're here to talk about a movie that no one in the world ever talks about, the 1992 Ralph Bakshi movie, Cool World. Now, I was thinking about movies like this, and I was, gonna do my typical discussion about movies like this, but there are no fucking movies like this, guys. This is the only movie like this. So we have a cast of some famous people in here. We got Brad Pitt, we got Gabriel Byrne. Those guys have some roles that not many people talk about that are kind of obscure but are kind of cool. I know I have some ideas of some examples, but I wanted to ask you guys, like Steve, Brad Pitt, when you think of him, obviously you think of all these huge movies. Same thing with Gabriel Byrne. But are there any kind of like more obscure ones that you like from those guys?
The closest thing to an obscure film with Pitt in it that I can think of that I actually liked was Less Than Zero, but he's an extra in it. Is only in the movie for like 60 seconds. That's not a knock at Pitt. I like Pitt. It's just that anything other than that I'd pick out for him would not be a small performance. If I brought up Fight Club, no one's going to be like, oh, what's Fight Club?
I think that's like the first movie on his resume on IMDb.
Yeah.
So, on IMDb, it shows like their most known thing first, and it kind of tries to do it in order.
Right.
Fight Club is like the first thing.
Right. I mean, Legends of the Fall, 7 Years in Tibet. He's been in a lot of really good movies. It's just that none of them are like lesser known parts.
Well, I have an example of a lesser known part from Brad Pitt of a movie that I really like. The movie itself isn't like small. It's kind of small. But Brad Pitt had a very tiny role in a 1993 movie called True Romance.
Oh, that's right, he is in that.
Which is my favorite Tarantino script. Tarantino didn't direct it, but he wrote it and sold it. And Brad Pitt is just like this lazy bum that like leeches off his best friend and sleeps on the couch and gets baked all day, every day.
You live here?
Yes, I do.
You're sort of roommates?
Exactly, roommates.
Yeah, well, maybe you can help me. I'm looking for a friend of
Sure.
mine. Clarence Worley from Detroit. He's traveling with a real pretty girl named Alabama.
Oh, yeah, man, I know them. They've been by here.
You seen them?
Mm-hmm.
They staying here?
No, they're staying at the Safari Motel Inn. Safari Motel.
Safari Motel?
Yep.
How do you know that? I mean, have you been over there?
No, well, they were here, and they said that they were going to go there. And they went.
Yeah?
Yeah, Safari Motel.
Safari Motel.
Uh-huh. Hey, you want to watch some TV or something? They might be back here.
No, thank you. Thank you, though.
Okay.
All right, you take care. I might be back.
Yeah, man. Okay, be cool. You condescend me, man. I'll fucking kill you, man.
And it's so fucking funny to see him like in this role because, we think of Brad Pitt as the movie star, but he wasn't quite Brad Pitt, the movie star in 93. That really happened in 94, in my opinion. It was like a very specific year. He had some huge movies. Interview, Legends of the Fall came out the same year. This movie, Cool World, is pre-Brad Pitt as we know him today.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But before I say more on him, because I don't want to kind of steal the thunder, Stevie, do you have any kind of like obscure cool roles that you know and like for someone like Brad Pitt or Gabriel Byrne even?
Well, I mean, if you're going to go Gabriel Byrne, it's going to be End of Days when he plays the devil. That's horny Gabriel Byrne.
It seems like he's always horny Gabriel Byrne.
He's horny in the 90s, I tell you.
I mean, I get the idea that he's like a good-looking guy, right? Like
Hollywood tries to tell us that, yeah.
The man is always horny.
Yes.
He's played Satan more than once, I think. I feel like the End of Days, and there was at least one other one where he was also basically human Satan.
No, I think you're thinking of Stigmata, where he was a priest battling Satan.
You know what? You might be right
yeah.
about that. You might be right about that.
I think he was horny in that one too, though.
In fact, I think Frank Mancuso Jr. who produced this, also produced that. So that's funny.
Oh, God.
Yeah, right.
But, like, Brad Pitt doesn't have a ton of obscure roles. I mean, you could say,
Yeah.
like, Deadpool 2, but that's just kind of like a joke.
I think they just like photoshopped him in, right?
Yeah.
And then gave him a credit.
Probably.
Probably did that to avoid being sued like Crispin Glover did with Back to the Future too.
Yeah. But, like, an actual role of his where he's not, like, you know, top billed or in the movie every scene. I really liked him in The Big Short, which surprisingly, his character brought, like, a lot of validity to that movie. It's a much different role for Brad Pitt in that, and I liked him in that quite a bit. He's very serious in that.
There's a movie that is semi-big and semi-remembered, but like not to the degree of a lot of Brad Pitt 90s movies. And that's a movie called 12 Monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's one of the movies of the 90s that showed this guy is a great actor.
So, if you want to watch a particular television program, say, like All My Children or something, you go to the charge nurse, you tell the day, the time, the show you want to see is on, but you have to tell her before the show is scheduled to be on. And there was this guy, and he was always requesting shows that had already played. Yes, no, you have to tell her before. He couldn't quite grasp the idea that the charge nurse couldn't make it be yesterday. He couldn't turn back time, thank you, Einstein. Now he was nuts. He was a fruitcake, Jim.
That's it, Jeffrey. You're gonna get a shot. I warned you.
Right. I got a little carried away explaining the inner workings of the institution to Jim.
I agree with you. I love that film. It's one of my favorite movies overall anyway. I just wouldn't have thought, I'm not disagreeing with you, I just wouldn't have thought to pitch it as being a lesser known one, but you could be right about that. It's definitely not the first film of his I think anybody would come up with.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say because I'm kind of detached from like Gen Z, so I don't know what they know.
Right? It just seems like people have a real short memory in general, especially younger audiences. Once a movie gets to be more than about a decade old, they start to fade real fast, unless it was something gigantic like Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Snatch was a really cool role for Brad Pitt.
That's another one I thought of too. It's just another one I felt like everyone's going to know Snatch, but you're right. He was great in that.
Absolutely.
Save your breath and cool your parts. Hey, look, so what's a heck of 2 roof lights? The stylish house frame furniture, and the scar cushions with matching shark pack cover. Yeah. Right. It's just terrible partial to the periwinkle blueberries.
You know, Brad Pitt had an interesting trajectory where he was like a pretty face, most notably so in Thelma and Louise, right? Where he was like, just like the good looking hunky guy, right?
Yeah.
And he got cast for his looks a lot, but eventually, I don't remember exactly how the story goes, but it was something like he got a new agent or he made sure that his agent got him roles that were not on the basis of his looks.
Right.
And that's where he really got to shine as an actor. And I think he's one of the greats.
People used to aim that same flashlight at Leo DiCaprio, but he's another, I think, interesting example because you look at like Gilbert Grape. Like, I can see why people think that he was only getting parts on the basis of the face, but he's actually put in some really good, very difficult performances.
Yeah, and he was young during that.
Yeah.
And he was young during the Basketball Diaries.
Yes, that's another really, really intense movie.
Yeah, but that one showcased, like, even at a young age, this man can do it, you know?
Yeah.
He can do it with other men in a bathroom stall, as displayed in that movie.
God, I mean, it must be really difficult as an actor to film that kind of scene.
I mean, everything in that movie is so unhinged and gross. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Stevie, what is your experience with the movie we're about to talk about, Cool World?
Oh, not pleasant. I saw this movie probably around, for the first time when I was like 9 or 10, and didn't love it. And then I thought, you know, for this podcast, hey, you know, I get to watch it again. Maybe, you know, times have changed. Maybe I was just, you know, immature. I've been like that for some movies, right? Where it's like I'm bored for the first time, then it, you know, a light clicks on the second time I watch it. Still hated it.
Yeah.
It's what I call a trudge. You know, you're kind of you're fighting the movie the whole time. It's kind of a difficult viewing experience. And I have some ideas why, but we can get into that in a little bit. But my experience with this movie overall is not a pleasant one.
Yeah, I saw this movie like when I was a kid, around the same age, Stevie, maybe actually slightly older. And it was on like one of those movie channels like HBO or Cinemax or whatever. We had one of those boxes where we could get the channels, even though we didn't pay for it, you know?
Yeah.
So like I put this on and I thought it was going to be like heavy metal, like it was going to have like nudity. And I was like watching like basically porn, right?
Yep.
But it doesn't quite go there. But this movie kind of got me worked up as a kid. And I don't know like how to feel about that. Like, I don't know if that's an inappropriate thing, right? Because this movie, kids are going to watch it. They're going to feel the way I feel. It's going to make them horny, Steve. How do you feel about that?
That's, I think, the constant fight for any kid born like much after 1980. I mean, you think about like Cammy and Chun-Li in the Street Fighter games, or Jessica Rabbit and Roger Rabbit. There's just so many examples.
They all made me horny, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, even we talked about this with Lola Bunny in the Space Jam movies. Like, clearly they were
not that one. That one didn't do it.
No, I mean, not for me either. But I've heard people say that they had the same reaction.
I've read.
Right? There's a lot. I mean, hell, we both read comic books growing up. Some of like Psylocke and the X-Men comics, I never knew quite how that was confusing as fuck. I'm like, I know this is not a real girl, but sweet Jesus, look at the way they drew her. Like, you know, it's hard when you're 12.
It's a weird thing, yeah. You know, the new X-Men series, X-Men 97, is out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really cool. But before it came out, people online were pissed because they wanted it to be sexier. And I oppose that. I'm not on the train of like, Rogue's ass needs to be bigger, her tits need to be bigger, her nipples need to be harder. Like, I'm not on that train at all. No. And a lot of people fucking are. It seems like in my experience online, most people are. But the reason is because I'm like, we don't need to be making shows for kids to make them horny. Like, that doesn't need to be a thing that we try to do actively.
Other people have disagreed with me to some degree over this before, but I've always felt like that was the biggest distinction between what we were getting in the comics and what we were getting from the other related media. Like, every other version of that always seemed more oriented toward young kids than the comics did. They did the same thing with the Ninja Turtles. Like, that's not to say that I didn't love the Ninja Turtles cartoon when I was a little kid, but like, it's a lot different than Eastman and Laird's comics. It's a lot different than the IDW comics. Like, Shredder was actively trying to murder them in the comics. You know, the cartoon media doesn't need to have all that. It's for a different version of that audience.
The comic is clearly for like teens and adults.
Yeah.
The originals. And then the show is clearly for 10-year-olds.
Right. That was really, I mean, we don't want to get off on this tangent, but I'll just make the one comment. That was really the beauty of that original live-action movie, is they did a really incredible job of riding the line between being acceptable for kids and being serious enough for grown-ups.
I couldn't agree more. And I love that movie for that. That is one we'll talk about more in depth one day, I hope. For now, we're going to talk about another 90s movie, Cool World. You know, this movie is a huge flop, Steve. I looked up the budget, and it actually had a $28 million budget, which I find very interesting because it's True Romance, which came out a few years later, I just talked about, had a $13 million budget.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I know that you're aware of, and a large percentage of the audience would be too, is a huge part of that just gets eaten up in the labor involved with the animation. Any kind of animation, even if you didn't like it, is so labor intensive on a cell-by-cell basis. Just the labor hours necessary to get the artists to create all of it ends up costing a fortune.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and animated movies famously take a very long time.
Right.
They probably still do, but they especially did when there was more hand-drawn involved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's some of the background material, which is there's not a lot of, but when you can actually get Bakshi to talk about this movie, which he doesn't really like to do much, they do talk about that, this was all by hand. There was no computer help at all. By the time they made the movie, there were computers that could help them a little bit, but they chose to do pretty much everything by hand for this movie.
And they did a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe too much.
I'm not going to argue, we'll get into it. I'm not going to argue it's a very good film, but I think the animation's the best part of it, for me at least. The rest of it's a letdown.
Well, Steve, that takes us to the famous question of how the hell was this movie made?
So this is one of those instances where there's weirdly conflicting information, and it's another one of those instances where it seems like some of the people who put background material online were straight up just making up what they wrote. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time touching on all those different variations. I'm just going to give you the story that the people involved have actually told. Frank Mancuso Jr. is a film producer. His father was the head of multiple studios. Both of them, well, his father had a really good career. Mancuso Jr.'s had a very mediocre career in terms of the quality of what he's produced. He's made a lot of money. Unfortunately, it was mostly on garbage movies, but he claims that at some point in the very early 90s, an attorney that he was working with, who also represented Bakshi, contacted him over the phone and basically said, hey, Ralph Bakshi's also a client of mine. He's got an idea for a movie that he shared with me. I think you'd like it. Why don't you hear it? The two of them got together, and that turned into Mancuso Jr. arranging for Bakshi to pitch the movie to Paramount. There's a little bit there I want to mention, but I do want to touch on Bakshi himself just briefly. I don't think he's a name that's widely known now, especially among younger people, but he's an animator and filmmaker. He's primarily known for independent and adult-oriented animation. Between 72 and 94, he directed 9 theatrically released feature films, 5 of which he wrote himself. He's also been involved in a lot of TV projects. He started his career at a company called Tarrytown Studios. He worked on a really famous animated feature called Fritz the Cat in the 70s, which was widely considered to be the first animated work aimed at adults. It's not one I'm fond of, but it was important for its cultural impact. He's most well known for a 1977 animated feature called Wizards, which is sincerely one of the most widely awarded and celebrated animated films of all time. It's been run at a number of different festivals and written about constantly. He did another huge one called American Pop that came out in 81. He did a fantasy animated film in 83 called Fire and Ice, which is another one that has a huge cult following, and a 1978 animated adaptation of Lord of the Rings. He really has been the recipient of a lot of awards. He won a tribute award at the Cinequest Film Festival. The Online Film Critics Society released a list of the top 100 animated features of all time in 2003 that 4 of his films were on, including Fritz the Cat, Lord of the Rings, Coonskin, and Fire and Ice. Fritz the Cat itself is ranked number 56 in a 2004 poll conducted in Britain about animated work. The Museum of Modern Art has actually added Bakshi's films to its collection for preservation. He won an award from the Los Angeles Student Film Festival and another one at other ones at several animated film festivals. So he really is regarded as having produced some of the best content of his type. The idea that Mancuso Jr.'s lawyer called about was originally about a human man who gets transported to an animated world where he conceives a child with a woman and then has to leave. And years later, the animated kid, feeling abandoned by his father, makes his way to the real world to find the guy and basically kill him. And the whole thing, if you watch the little bit of material that's available, Bakshi actually shows off some of the art. The whole thing was actually designed to be an animated noir movie. It was supposed to feel like something from the 30s. It was going to be dark and kind of violent, and Bakshi claims that when he got the opportunity to pitch to Paramount and show them the artwork, that the executives he was in the room with bought it immediately. Like, no notes, no argument, no discussion. They just like, yes, we want it. Now, it's worth bearing in mind, Roger Rabbit had come out like a year and a half before. And that was one of the reasons Mancuso Jr. was willing to back the movie, because Roger Rabbit had been huge. He felt that it was proof that adult audiences were willing to go to a theater to see a movie that had this kind of content. The problem became that Mancuso Jr. decided behind Bakshi's back that some elements of the idea were too much or too intense. And it's very weird to consider this, considering how sexualized the movie ended up being, and this is Mancuso's fault. Mancuso convinced the studio executives after Bakshi had pitched to them that they needed to reorient the movie and make it brighter and take away a lot of the noir elements in order to make it more appealing to a wide audience. He also convinced them that if the movie ended up being rated R, that nobody would go see it, and the studio executives believed him. Bakshi had written this massive script, and they were moving forward with it. They hired background artists. They started building these massive sets in Las Vegas to film the live action scenes on. And Mancuso Jr. secretly hired 2 other writers who are garbage screenwriters to start rewriting Bakshi's script without him knowing about it. And by the time Bakshi realized what was going on, it was way too late to do anything about it. And Bakshi describes the experience as going from getting everything he wanted to not getting anything he wanted at all. And the only reason he stayed with the project was because they basically told him, we own this now and we're going to make it whether you're involved or not. And
they massacred his boy.
Yeah, exactly. And he figured if he stayed on, at least he could save elements of it. And they fought him so hard the entire way, it sort of ended up not happening. But
so who are these writers? Is it Michael Grace and Mark Victor?
Yeah, exactly.
The writing team that brought us Poltergeist?
Yeah, exactly. Now, those guys, I don't think wrote Poltergeist. I think one of them co-wrote Poltergeist. I think he was more famous for working on the sequels, which weren't as good. And I don't think there's anything else in either of their resumes worth touching on that I can remember.
It's those two and Spielberg, right? Spielberg the story was by Spielberg.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's really the big note there is when you've got Spielberg backing a project like that and he's the one primarily driving the script, it almost doesn't matter who gets the screenwriting credit because the reality is it was Spielberg. In the case of something like Jurassic Park, it was Michael Crichton, but then Spielberg took it and put his own thing on it. So yeah, these 2 guys with Mancuso's backing just completely destroyed it. So what we ended up getting... It's not even one of these situations where like there's a director's cut that's better. It's just that what they ended up producing was a massacre.
Right. There can't be a director's cut of this. The movie was altered to be this, right?
Yeah.
There's not like extra scenes that flesh it out. It's just a completely different beast.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get more into this in the review part, but basically to say that, like, my argument has never been that what they produced was really very good. My argument has always been that it would have been at least a lot better if they'd produced what Bakshi had intended and not this. And then I think it's worth noting, despite the fact that Mancuso Jr. wanted to tone it down to keep it from having an R rating, they still made the Holly character basically a walking sex doll. That character's got no depth at all beyond being attractive. Even Basinger, they let her start playing around with it. She had all kinds of weird notes. It was actually her idea to name that character Hollywood. That was not Bakshi's idea. She suggested it to Mancuso, and he liked it enough he made them put it in the script. She actually suggested at one point that they should soften the more sexual aspects of the movie because she wanted to be able to take copies of it with her to hospitals while she was doing charity work so she could show it to kids. And it's like, do you not understand what you were hired for? Do you think maybe you should just quit? Like, I don't know. The whole thing turned into a mess. It's definitely one of these instances where it turned out the way it did because there were too many hands in the honeypot. Most of them didn't understand what they were making.
What a shit show, Steve.
Yeah, exactly.
What an absolute fucking shit show. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about this actual movie. We're going to go right into it. This movie has some very, like, 90s opening credits. Right? Like, in terms of, like, just, like, the color, the animation that goes along with, like, the names as they appear, the music. If you told me these opening credits were for Showgirls, I would believe that. But suddenly, we get a very hard shift, the first of many in the movie. And Stevie, we're in Vegas in 1945. What goes down over there?
Yeah, we're pretty much at the infancy of, like, Vegas being built to like what Vegas could be or what it turned into. But seems like return home from war. You know, people getting off the plane, people anxious, people nervous. And as people start flooding out and hugging their loved ones, and after those god-awful credits, those credits were so hard to watch. It's kind of one of those things you immediately know you're in bad hands when you watch a movie. Like, when I was looking at these credits, I was like, we're not in for a good time.
Yeah, shit.
You know what I mean? It's like this movie had a lot of work to do after the credits. But we see Brad Pitt, and we immediately know, hey, main character of the movie right here. And so, you know, he meets his mom at the airport. All is well. And, you know, maybe I could be wrong, but his house seems kind of strange. Like, is his house outside Vegas? Is that what I'm taking? Or is it in the middle of, like, Nebraska?
I think it's supposed to be outside Vegas, but I agree with where you're going with that. The only real asterisk I'd say is it's supposed to be, the mid-40s, so I guess it would
Yes.
be... Yeah.
It just seemed kind of odd, because that house seemed like in Nebraska or somewhere in the Midwest, not outside of Vegas, but I could be wrong. But we get this kind of strange shift of, he puts on, what would you call that suit, like a box suit?
Oh, yeah, with the 30s cut with the huge shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, he looks kind of like Herman Munster, walking into the kitchen. And that's where we kind of get this fateful time of, hey, Ma, look at my motorcycle.
5 seconds, you're already cooking. Come here, I got something to show you.
Well, wait a minute.
Outside.
Wait a minute. I haven't finished cooking your dinner.
Yeah, it's a surprise. It's all right. Come on. Shut your eyes. You're all right.
Sweetie, the dinner just...
The dinner's fine. Okay. Almost. Now!
Oh, it's...
Is that beautiful? Huh?
It's lovely.
I know. I won it in a poker game in Italy. Huh?
We'll drive it carefully, honey.
I will. God, you're such a mom. You ready? We're going for a ride.
Oh, no. I have to finish dinner.
One ride.
Watch this, Mom. No hands.
Oh, Frank, don't do that.
I wouldn't do that. Come on.
Every parent's, worst nightmare is, hey, look what I got. It's a motorcycle. I won it, in Italy and had it flown back here. Isn't this awesome?
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to, out of all the things to pick at in this movie, I'm not going to pick at that.
Well, I will, because, Steve, the movie doesn't work for me. This is supposed to be 1945, and that's clearly a 1948 Indian Chief motorcycle.
Oh, God.
I mean, come on. What do they expect me to believe? This horse shit?
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful old motorcycle, but yeah, I mean, come on. Get period correct, guys.
Yeah, he's just an all-American boy, just a good old all-American boy. We just beat the Nazis. He served in the military.
He's really terrible in this movie.
He sucks in this movie,
It's the
dude.
only movie I would ever say that about him in this. I swear I like Brad Pitt, but man, he's bad in this.
I think that becomes apparent later in the movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. But that early part, it's just very like Hills Have Eyes or Texas Chainsaw vibe, where it's like, is he having sex with his mother? Because this is a real weird vibe between the two of them.
They're real close, man.
Yeah. And then he tells her to just leave things cooking on the stove so they can go riding on the motorcycle. It's like, maybe you want to turn the stovetop off so your house doesn't burn down.
He wants a disaster to happen.
Right? Yeah, he's kind of a psychotic.
He either wants the house to blow down or he wants to murder his mom in a motorcycle accident because he doesn't give her a helmet.
I'm home.
She doesn't survive the crash because she doesn't have a helmet. So, I don't know. I think he wanted this.
For the life of me, I don't understand why this exists. Like, the first 10 to 12 minutes, I don't understand why they didn't get cut.
The only reason I can think of, and I'm not arguing your point, is that they needed some kind of setup for the animated professor playing around with the thing that transports humans into their animated world.
The spike.
Yeah, the spike.
The stupid plot contrivance.
Which is, yeah, I mean, that's another thing Mancuso had these writers cram into the movie. That was not Bakshi's idea. That was them. Like, yeah, but I agree with you, Stevie. I really do. It's just they did it really poorly. They needed a way to set that story piece up, and they just did not choose a good way to do it.
I think we have a true MacGuffin with the involvement of the spike.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things that you don't really know what it does.
That's one of my biggest problems with this movie. You never really find out what it does. There's no payoff resulting from it being there. Like, Holly ends up making a huge thing out of wanting to get to it, and then it just kind of farts out at the end.
And it's also, like, not an interesting object.
Yeah.
It's just a glowing, like, mushroom. It's just this conal-shaped glow thing, right? And it's like something in a Transformers movie, right? There's always like a thing they got to get in a Transformers movie, and it does a thing that you never remember what.
Right.
That's the spike. In 10 days, I'm not going to remember what it looks like or what it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an absolute problem with this movie.
I think this movie would have worked better with a handoff where we don't start off with Brad Pitt. We start off with the couple that kills Brad Pitt's mom. And that's where we could do that handoff. Like, that to me is a little more interesting.
No, I agree with you. And in fact, I should have stuck this in when I was talking a minute ago, but Bakshi actually envisioned this as being a hybrid live-action animated horror film. So that kind of thing would have fit way better with what he wanted originally.
And Brad Pitt does appear to be the main character. I think of him as the main character in my memory for this movie, partially because he's on the poster. And I saw that VHS tape at rental stores every weekend.
Yeah.
That was always one I was curious about, but never quite picked up.
Right.
But he's not top billed. He is not the number one billed actor.
In fact, I should have mentioned this also. That's a very astute point to bring it up. Bakshi actually wanted him to play Jack, the Gabriel Byrne character. And that was one of the things even the studio execs fought him about. Here's a really fucked up thing to consider intellectually. At that point in time, Paramount Pictures considered Gabriel Byrne a bigger movie star than Brad Pitt. And when Bakshi pitched Pitt for the lead part, the studio said, no, we'll let you put him in something, but you got to give the part to someone with more name recognition. So Brad Pitt was supposed to be the main character, and then ended up being the de facto main character, even though he wasn't supposed to be.
Well, everyone's got to start somewhere, Steve. And Brad Pitt's biggest role at this time was still Thelma and Louise.
You're right. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's just kind of strange to consider now. And I like Gabriel Byrne. He's been in some really good movies, but it's just so strange to think at this point that like he was the bigger of those two stars in 1991 or whatever when they were actually producing this.
Yeah.
It's kind of shocking that Brad Pitt held on to a career after this.
It's true. A lot of actors.
Serious.
I know, I agree. A lot of the actors do this kind of thing early.
He could have gone to actor jail real quick.
Right? God.
Yeah, especially now.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be game over, you know?
Right? Well, God, now it's especially brutal. The studios have spent $150 million, $200 million making some massive blockbuster, and if it underperforms at all, it's just, we're done. We're never going back to this. It was supposed to have 9 sequels. We're not making any of those. Like, I mean, imagine the disappointment after Jupiter Ascending. Although that one's like, how the fuck did you not know what you were going to get from the beginning?
Hey, they made The Matrix, Steve.
Right? They get to keep making The Matrix. The last one was garbage. The 2 before that were garbage. And now they're making a 5th one.
Hey, dude, this is the law of franchises. You just need one good one.
You only need one. Right?
You only need one.
There can only be one good movie in the Wachowskis' filmography.
Yeah. I mean, Terminator, they got lucky. They got 2.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's because James Cameron is James Cameron. I mean, fuck.
I know. An easy guy to pick on, but never bet against him.
No, I mean, even the stuff he's made that I don't like, it's like, who the hell cares? It made 12 times what they cost to make it. Like, just give the man a checkbook.
James Cameron's been on my mind a lot lately for reasons that the audience will soon discover, but I'm going to take us back into this movie. You know, Brad Pitt, all-American boy, taking his mother out for a motorcycle ride, but they get clobbered by some 40s alcoholic drunk drivers, and, you know, there's a crash scene. It's clear that the mother is dead immediately. It's clear that Brad Pitt was like flung into safety, like he wasn't hurt that bad. A little scratched up, but more or less okay. But he starts having some PTSD kind of war flashbacks immediately.
Water's coming in! Water's coming in! Machine gun right flank! Machine gun right flank!
I swear to God, this is the prototype for the character he played in 12 Monkeys. This is where he practiced for that. Except he was really good in one of them and really terrible in the other.
Also, like, the fact that he has these PTSD flashbacks doesn't inform any of his decisions in the movie whatsoever.
No.
So, like, there are things that happen in this movie that it's like building something but never comes back to them. There's plants and no payoffs all the time in this movie.
Yeah, it's almost as if someone wrote an entire script and then another person who didn't know what they were doing hired 2 other writers to completely recraft it without paying any attention to what they were doing.
Stevie, around this time, we get to see the first sign of Cool World through Doc Whiskers. What is going on?
Well, we kind of start getting some Cranium Command stuff going. Yeah, it's a Disney reference. Long story short, after the PTSD, we start kind of getting these, rips in the fabric of reality. And that's where we're seeing Doc Whiskers lament about the spike. And eventually we get to the point where Brad Pitt enters Cool World. And it looks like a lot of Ralph Bakshi's characters always look kind of odd and intimidating and rather thuggish.
Especially here. But again, you know what? There's a lot of that, I'll say, in the movie. That's very true.
Yeah, all of them look like villains. But I guess that's the world that, he's kind of shooting for in the Cool World. And that's where we kind of get this, I like the shot personally of like Brad Pitt, like kind of walking towards like the lit tunnel with Doc Whiskers.
Yeah.
To me, like, I've always kind of questioned why Brad Pitt needed to fall off a building in this movie when, to me, he kind of clearly died in the beginning. That's kind of the way I've always looked at it.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way the story unfolded to me. I don't understand why he had to fall off a building. He died in the first, 10 minutes of this movie. But I do like that animated shot of, Whiskers and Brad Pitt kind of walking towards the light, per se.
Oh, bother. What the hell are you? They're doodles.
Cartoons?
Don't get too close, Doc. I can't believe what I've done. My spike was supposed to send me to your world, but instead, you're here. This man's not dangerous to anyone. As for us, son, we may not be real to you as yet, but we will be. You've come to a whole new world. You've done something extremely rare. You see, you're in a real place called the Cool World.
I'm sorry about your mother.
You're cartoons. You're not real.
Oh, we're real, all right. The possibility of interworld travel has been an obsession of mine for many, many years. Hey, Doc, wait. This man is not for you. He's not a police problem. He's a mystery of science and a hero to boot.
I ain't no hero.
Oh, don't be so sure, friend. With this hole I've opened, there could be all kinds of problems. They call me Doc Whiskers. What's your name, son?
I'm Frank Harris.
What did you do in your world?
I was a soldier.
Oh, you could be useful here when I'm gone. Where are you from?
I'm Vegas.
So, Brad Pitt's character, I know we keep calling him Brad Pitt. His name is Frank Harris.
He's Brad Pitt.
He's Brad Pitt.
He doesn't come off like a Frank to me.
We can call him Tyler Durden.
So Frank is transported into the cartoon land, which we just get a slight taste of right here. We do not get to see Cool World fully fleshed out at this time because the movie wants to do another very hard cut to Vegas in 1992. Steve, we see Jack Deebs. What's going on with Jack Deebs?
Jack's in a prison cell, and it's such an early 90s way of doing this, and part of me loves it, part of me also hates it because it's patently just fucking ridiculous. The dude's in a jail cell.
You mean an art studio?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. But he's got the whole cell pasted with his drawings. He's got a real drafter's desk in there and a full set of like rulers and pens and everything an animator would need. And, right? And like he's a comic book artist and writer, which is an awesome vocation, but like there's what jail anywhere is going to let this dude who's a convicted criminal of some kind. By the way, they never tell you what he did to end up in jail. That's just, don't worry about it.
Someone says it in the comic shop. They said, why don't you Write a comic book about how you killed that guy who was sleeping with your wife.
That's right. There's a 10-second implication where it's like it's because he murdered some dude who was bopping his wife. All right, you're right about that. But yeah, otherwise, no real context for it. And somehow, yeah, he's been able to set up his whole comic workshop from jail. He's still publishing comic books from jail. It's like, I'm pretty sure that's not how jail works. Like,
yeah, this dude, man. All right. Jack Deeb's in jail. First of all, he gets a glimpse into Cool World, and I'm led to believe this is the first time that's happened due to how freaked out and surprised he is.
Yeah, he's got no clue there's a version of it that you can be in.
And when he gets a glimpse into Cool World, this happens on his last day in jail, and I couldn't help but think, man, he could have really used this alternate reality during the term of his sentence, I'm sure. Like, imagine how nice that would be. You're locked in jail, and you get to occasionally leave and go to Cool World.
You know, Korey, that's a really interesting pitch. Honestly, I mean that sincerely. Like, it wouldn't take away the sort of ridiculousness if he's got this animation studio in a jail cell, but, like, if he'd been in jail the whole time and he was just escaping to that world, it may have been a lot more interesting.
Brad Pitt dies and goes to Cool World. This man is escaping his living hell, right? I mean, there's something there. I don't know if, like, you still need to kind of rework a lot of this movie, but it doesn't save the movie, but yeah. Secondly, this is another thing that's set up with this man being in prison. This is his last day. He's getting out. That exists in this story, but doesn't inform any of his decisions, right? So we have these events with these characters that I don't know if they're necessarily there for a reason.
No, I agree with you completely. The Deebs being in jail in the first place is a remnant from Bakshi's original idea that they didn't remove for God knows what fucking reason. You are completely right, 100,000,000% right. They could have removed that and just had him. They could have started the movie with him being sleepily working over his drafting desk at 2 a.m. from the living room of his house. He didn't ever need to have been in jail.
Right.
It seems kind of like a big deal that this man murdered somebody who was sleeping with his wife. And you don't kill someone who's doing that unless you deeply care. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, there should be some kind of payoff that, like, Holly is, like, a remnants of his wife. Or he's trying to, like, reconnect, like, that. Or trying to repair that. And we never get that.
That's another really good idea.
Yeah, like...
We never really get that payoff of, like... You're kind of chasing the devil here, and here's what happens, like, if you knock on the door too many times, like, if someone answers. That, to me, is kind of where there could have been some... I'm sure Ralph had these great ideas, because you're right, when too many hands get involved and you start to disseminate something, that's where, like, a story stops to fall on itself. You kind of get in that scary range of, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens.
And you never want a story to be, and then something happens.
And then you want kind of if, but, because, and therefore. Yeah, you get those, kind of how basic story structure works. So it bummed me out that Holly was never like a leftover remnant of his wife and like the damage that was done there. That always kind of makes me sad about this movie.
That had never occurred to me either, but it's a fantastic idea. They could have had it. I'm just throwing darts at a wall here, but they could have had it like maybe he shot her accidentally at the same time and he created Holly so that he'd have some version of her, or she left because of what happened and Holly was the replacement for having, whatever way you twist that's a really good way to have done it.
Absolutely. I think that's pretty cool. But we have Deebs here in prison. He is a lonely man that draws his own Rule 34 porn,
God, years before Rule 34 was even a thing.
I get the feeling he has abused many a Fifi in prison. Which...
God.
You definitely don't want to have shower time with Deebs.
Yeah. Deebs, you don't need to bring your pictures of Holly to the shower.
Guy's just got a rag he calls Holly.
But we talked about this. He's transported into a different world altogether. This place is called Cool World. They told us that. Cool World is insane when we see it this time around. It's just partying and mayhem. And at the center of all this mayhem, Steve, is Hollywood, who kind of looks like a Jim Lee, Emma Frost.
Oh, man, that's not a bad way of putting it. I always have thought that she was kind of an Emma Frost-ish type character, but you're right. Like, yeah, Holly's supposed to be performing like a dance number, There's another one got screwed up when all the revisions and details. She was originally supposed to be kind of a Marilyn Monroe type, or kind of a real-world Betty Boop. And there was always an intent that she'd be sexy, but Bakshi's original pitch for her was that she was going to be the blonde bombshell noir heroine who you'd find in like a 1930s-era detective movie. And even though Mancuso pitched it to the studio like he wanted to soften those edges so that the film would be more widely appealing, he and those two writers diluted her into being a sex doll. She's got no depth at all aside from the characters all want to have sex with her.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? She's the Jessica Rabbit type of this movie.
Right, yeah, except even Jessica Rabbit had more depth than that.
She had a little bit more to do as well. In the case of that story, there was a frame job, and she kind of helps with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best part. In the end, despite the fact that she originally gets set up as being sort of that sex doll type, in the end it turns out she's smarter than Roger and has her own kind of hand in making it all happen.
Yeah, but, you know, I can't help but draw the comparison of Who Framed Roger Rabbit to this movie.
No, absolutely, and you should, because you're supposed to, because that was really, if that movie hadn't gotten made and hadn't been successful, this never would have gotten approved.
When you watch this, you kind of get the idea that someone said, you know, this ain't your mama's Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Right. Mancuso almost does say it like that. There's one little 22-minute mini documentary, it's on the Blu-ray of this movie, that he gets him interviewed, and that's almost exactly the way he pitched it.
One of the IMDb notes is that there was a press release and the studio tried to sell the movie as a down and dirty Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But, you know, this movie is not as good as Who Framed. We'll just put that out there right now. I think the success of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was the highest grossing movie in 1988 by a huge fucking margin.
Yeah. And won Academy Awards.
That movie very much was going to inevitably get like lesser variations of it. There's going to be other movies like it that came out, and I think Cool World is the prime example.
Right. In fact, this is a real quick one. I was going to save it for the end, but I think it's a worthwhile note based on your comment. The advertising was one of the biggest problems with this. Frank Mancuso Jr. ended up getting fired from the studio like 6 weeks before this was supposed to come out and before any of the ad materials had been finished. And the studio decided to completely reorient the way they were going to advertise this movie after he was gone. They only started putting ads out something like 2 weeks before its release. They made an effort in a lot of the advertising to hide how sexualized the movie was, to try to dupe people into seeing it. There was also a big controversy where they added a cutout figure of Holly to the Hollywood sign, and people protested it. They were pissed. The studio ended up having to remove it to just make it all go away. Like, yeah, so the advertising was a huge part of the problem with this.
I didn't watch the advertising for this, but I'm going to go back and rewatch some of it, because, like, this movie is unmarketable. Like,
yeah. When the weirdest part about some of the ads, when you go back and watch them, is some of them almost pitch it as being what Bakshi wanted in the first place and then had gotten taken away from him. It makes it seem like it's a noir movie about a real guy who ends up in an animated world, which is basically what Bakshi had wanted and which they did not at all do. So, I don't know.
You know, I told you I had watched this as a kid and had weird feelings about it. But there was one very big thing I remember about this movie, and I'm going to talk about it when it comes to that moment in the plot.
Right.
One very big thing, which I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, but we'll get there. So yeah, Jack Deebs sees his creation, the love of his life, his drawing, Hollywood, in this just insane environment where every character is lusting after the one humanoid sexy woman. Most of the people here are not as humanoid as Holly, right?
No.
They're animal hybrids and just really chaotic cartoons. It's insane. But, you know, Holly is a babe.
Yeah, the animated version of her for sure. I mean, not that Basinger's not attractive, but yeah.
Don't like Vicky Vale, Steve?
I don't like Basinger very much, if I'm being honest. I think the only movie she's ever really been good in was L.A. Confidential, and all she really had to do was play an attractive prostitute. But anyway.
Well, Deebs is transported back, and we cut over to Frank Harris, Brad Pitt, now Detective Frank Harris, who is, you know, a lot of time has passed, and he is now very comfortable in this world. Stevie, what is Frank Harris up to in Cool World?
Besides not aging,
besides not aging? What is time like for him, Stevie?
He's a weird one.
Apparently it stands still. Apparently there is no time in the cool world. Time is something that's mythical there. Yeah. It seems kind of odd. Frank is kind of laying down the law of cool world, which is keeping things grimy. Things are okay to be grimy. Laws can be broken, but no sex. Like, I mean, that's kind of like the basis we're going down, right? He's very adamant. No sex.
The humans, the noids as they call them, can't
have sex with the doodles, yeah.
Despite the use of the term noid, there was no pizza anywhere in this film. Very disappointing.
Domino's wouldn't have it, you know?
Domino's wouldn't have it.
That ad campaign wasn't even old at the point this movie got made.
Right, it was still, like, in the zeitgeist.
Right?
Which I don't think is necessarily a good thing for this movie, because
No.
noid is a very weird word.
Right.
And it actually took me a little bit to understand what the fuck they meant when they said noid.
Right.
Maybe I'm just slow, I don't know.
No, well, as a kid, I definitely didn't get it. I had to watch this film 2 or 3 times. It wasn't until I was in my late teens or early 20s where I'm like, oh, noid.
Like, Korey, you bring up an interesting point. As much as I, like, don't love stuff like that, this movie could have used a bevy of, like, tie-in advertisement, honestly. Like, I understand there's original animation, but I feel like the one giant draw for, you know, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was you have all these crossover, you know, animated characters that everyone loves, right?
Hell
Like,
yeah.
That's advertisement that you could do, like Bob Hoskins staying in an elevator with Droopy Dog. Like, I still love that scene a ton from that movie. But you don't have these characters in this movie. You have what looks like Newell School tattoos that are ripped off people's arms and thrown into an animated movie. Like, you could have used McDonald's or a Coke or a Pepsi or something to have, like, a tie-in that would have, I think, driven this movie a little bit further. That's just my opinion.
No, I mean, I agreed up to a point at least. Yeah, the dueling pianos with Donald and Daffy and Roger Rabbit's incredible. The animated world itself is the only part of this movie that I really like, and the single part of it that I'll really defend. Like, I love the way they made it look. The backdrops were all painted by guys, Barry something. I'm not forgetting his name, but I think they look great. I think the landscape looks great. I think the city itself looks very neat. One thing
Steve, how would you describe, like, the landscape in this city? Like, if, you know, someone hasn't seen this, like, they probably think of Toontown, but it's not like that.
No, it's kind of like what Toontown would end up being if it were, like, abandoned for 2 decades. It's this very grimy...
Looks like Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great way of putting it, because it's supposed to be very noir-inspired in the same way as that, where it's a lot of, like, it looks like it's vaguely the 30s or 40s, but it's a city that's become very run down. It's got this huge landscape of massive buildings and other features, but none of it is being kept up very well. One of the things I really like about the way they did it is that Bakshi designed what he wanted things like street lamps or furniture inside the apartments to look like. And they printed his drawings at scale on, like, sticky paper and then built wood frames and then pasted the artwork over it. So when you look at...
That's cool.
Right? Yeah, I think so. I think this is a neat touch. When you look at, like the parts where Brad Pitt or Gabriel Byrne's characters are the center in the animated scenes, you can see that from their perspective, things like street lamps and fire hydrants and furniture are flat. They're 2D, because that's the way a human being would perceive them. But it still looks drawn. And that's what drives me nuts about this movie. They left just enough of those little touches that I feel like I can see what it would have been. And it's like, that part's really neat to me, but you guys screwed the pooch on everything else.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, I agree, Steve, the backdrops are really cool.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's just, like, too much clash between what's in the foreground and what's in the background, and they don't fucking work together, right? Like,
I can see where you're going.
In Toontown, everything fits together, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. In this movie, sometimes things work together, right? Sometimes you get this neat kind of, like, gangster character named Sparks, and he seems to fit in this environment.
Right.
And sometimes it's just cutesy little rabbits.
Right.
You know?
No, absolutely. It's an interesting breakdown. I don't know, yeah, but that world I think is the one part of this that really popped for me.
And, you know, Frank is trying to keep law and order, which basically just means, like Stevie said, if you're a human, don't fuck a cartoon, because
right,
things could get bad.
Because there's so many humans running around.
Right? I mean, you're both right. That's the weirdest part. Like, it seems like his only reason for existing as a law enforcement agent is to make sure that humans aren't having sex with toons, but it's like, dude, you're the only human there. Like, what are you so worried about?
And he's dating one.
And he's dating one of the dudes that he won't have sex with. Like, what's the point of even dating her? She's constantly all over him. And he's like, nope, can't do that. I'm too moral for that. Like, dude, either do it or stop dating her.
I'm a man of the law.
Right? This one law. Everything else is fun. We've got gambling dens and gang violence. The whole city's a mess. The one thing I'm concerned about is that nobody's having sex with me, apparently.
Yeah, his girl is basically like brunette Holly, right? There's
Yeah.
2 attractive human animated women in this area. There's Holly.
Right.
And what's the other one? Lonette?
Yeah. And I mean, both, again, remnants, just the last little remnants of that noirish perspective that Bakshi was trying to get. She's definitely a very 30s or 40s type of character. It's the type of character you might have seen in a movie from that era.
Like an animated pinup girl.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Yes.
There'll be no crossovers while I'm around.
I've got news for you, pal. I am not your ordinary doodle. I've been checking up on what these Noid dames have got going in the real world, and I want it! Don't you see? They're real. They've got power. When they touch something, they feel it. And when they taste something, they really taste it. And when they do it with a man, oh, they really do it.
What can I say, sweetheart? I can't help you out in that department.
Well, don't you see? Believe it.
I've had enough.
Oh, yeah? Fine. You don't want to help me? Then I'll find somebody else that will. Like that Noid cartoonist, Jack Deebs. He's been around a lot lately.
Yes, he has. The wackadoo who thinks he invented this place. What do you think I've been talking about, Holly?
Well, I'd watch it, honey, because there might be 2 of you before long.
I'm gonna tell you this once, because you gotta be smarter than you look. You're dealing with shit here that's way over your head.
Yeah.
Now keep your legs crossed and forget about the real world. Thank you for your time.
So where Frank leaves that conversation is he tells Hollywood to keep your legs crossed and forget about the real world.
I actually do like that moment. It's ridiculous, but I like it.
Why? What happens?
So he tells her, keep your legs closed. And as soon as he turns his back and walks out the door, she just sits down on the couch and spreads eagle. And it's like, it's not even the sexual part of it that I like. It's just, it's such, to me, that was one of the few like funny kind of fuck you moments in the movie. Like, I'm not going to do what you tell me. Like,
for kids, Steve, you know. For the kids.
Again, like that's the one theme that I keep coming back to mentally is like Mancuso Jr. insisted that he had to water down 80% of what Bakshi wanted to make the movie appropriate for non-adults to see. And then all he really did was neuter out the good stuff without actually achieving that goal.
Yeah. This movie is like half in, half out on everything.
Right. Just fucking make a decision. Either let Bakshi make what he wants or turn it into something else. You guys went halfway.
And you guys talked about Brad Pitt's performance here. I have praised him earlier on this episode as I think he's one of the greats, and
Agreed.
I still maintain that. But here, where he's Detective Frank Harris, I think is where we get to see the poor performance.
Yeah.
Maybe the poor direction. Who knows? It was early in his career. Maybe he hasn't quite gotten there yet, but it's not really good.
No.
I think he's not the right guy for this. Like, what is he? Like kind of like a smooth talking noir detective kind of thing. And I was trying to think like
a
who
Bogart type.
who would be better around this time to do it. And I don't quite have the answer, but the closest thing...
Steve Guttenberg.
Get out, dude. I know he's your guy, but he's not the guy.
Yeah, big Gutenberg guy.
Oh, God.
And I was thinking maybe he might be too young, though. Ethan Hawke, like Gattaca, Ethan Hawke.
Gattaca's such a good movie.
Like,
Fuck.
I don't know. A Brad Pitt type, sure, but it's just something with the voice and the way he's delivering his lines is kind of awkward.
I got a couple of questions for you, miss.
Oh, come on, officer. Let it slide, would you? I'm tired.
Word is you got a thing for noids.
Yeah, I got a thing for noids. Well, what's it to you, tough guy?
Baby, you don't know how tough it is.
You're late.
Ah, you're killing me. Why are you so beautiful?
What's wrong? You don't look right.
Sally. I think she's in heat again.
With that noid from last night? Oof, don't worry about it.
You know that. Why you always want to bust...
Gotcha.
No, the whole thing's very awkward. It's not that he's a bad actor. He's just not the right actor for this part. He can't pull this one off. And it's not even necessarily a criticism of him. There's a right range of roles for any actor. I mean, hell, as much as I praise the guy as being the greatest living actor on the planet, there's a bunch of parts that, I wouldn't put Daniel Day-Lewis in The Running Man. Well, actually, that's actually a really stupid example for me to pick, because if they based that movie more closely on the story, he would have, the Stephen King story, he would have been the perfect pick, but not for the way that they did it. I'll use a different one. I wouldn't put him in Die Hard, you know?
He might pull it off, though, Steve.
I mean, he's talented enough. You know what? He would... I don't want this to sound anti-Rickman, because Rickman was perfect, but you could probably have put Daniel Day-Lewis in that part, and it would have been okay. Yeah, but anyway, the point is, yeah, it's just not a good part for him, not the right pull-off, but I agree with you. I don't know who else, in terms of big names from this era, I would have chosen. It may have been a better role for somebody else who was at the beginning of their career, or somebody who just wasn't a big-name star. But Bakshi kept getting shot down with that. He originally suggested Drew Barrymore to play Holly, and the studio said no. They didn't think she was big enough at that time either. Apparently, at one point...
She's been, huge her whole life.
That's what I don't understand. The studio rejected her, and it's like she'd already been in Firestarter and a bunch of other movies. She came from one of the most famous acting families on the planet.
She's a legacy.
Right? Barrymore wasn't big enough for you in 1992? The fuck are you talking about? She'd been in
E.T.,
right? Bakshi actually originally, at one point, proposed they consider Tracy Lords for that part, which would have been really interesting. And they were like, no, definitely not. But yeah.
I think if they had made time a construct in the Cool World, I don't know if they could afford him or not, but who would have been better suited for that role would have been Kevin Costner. He was huge at this time.
Ooh, that's not bad.
And I think he could act around nothing better than Brad Pitt could.
I agree with you.
That's hard for an actor to overcome, who especially has started the career as Brad Pitt was. Acting around nothing is no simple feat.
That must have been the hang-up here.
That was actually, yes, a huge issue. Basinger has said so in interviews. They were doing the animation in tandem with shooting the live action, and they didn't actually know for sure where they were going to place stuff or how they were going to orient the animated parts when they started filming the live action. So a lot of the time they were guessing. And even Basinger has said, there were instances where they didn't even have a mark for where the character was supposed to be. So she just had to guess where she was supposed to be speaking. And there are moments you can tell. There are moments where you can see that they're looking in completely the wrong place.
Yeah, sometimes the eye line doesn't match.
Yeah. Whereas with Roger Rabbit, they spent a tremendous amount of effort making sure that stuff was going to line up.
We get a little bit of a glimpse back into the real world. Gabriel Byrne, or Jack Deebs, the comic book artist. He's free now, but he doesn't seem to be too enthused about it, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of a little bit broken, maybe. He drives around and he goes to a comic shop called Real World Comics, which, Real World and Cool World.
They do have a fantastic mural on the wall outside the comic shop. I have a feeling that was a real comic shop that they just put a different name on, because that was, you may remember, that was pretty common, 80s and 90s. There was one what was it called? I think it was called Fantasy Comics. There was one in the San Fernando Valley I used to go to. Had the same thing. They had a huge mural down one wall that had like all the X-Men on it. It was super cool.
Oh yeah, and this one has the Killing Joke animation.
Yes! Yeah, this is a great mural. I like that part.
Pretty cool, yeah. But one thing that happens in this scene, well, there's two things. We learn about Deebs' history-wise in prison because someone like gives him shit. If I saw a guy that had killed a man and he was released, I don't think I would like get up in his face about it and be like, why don't you draw a comic about killing someone, bitch?
Yeah, it's a little weird that it's like, oh yeah, you're the comic book artist who killed your wife. Like, really? You want to bring that up?
He killed the guy.
Or the guy, excuse me, you're right. Killed the guy who was banging your wife. It's also, I mean, I can see it in certain, like, if it's somebody really famous, like McFarlane, I can see him being recognized. But, like, Jack Deebs is this, like, indie comic book artist. It's real strange to think he'd be getting recognized. They also don't show you what he's buying, but there's a weird implication that he's buying his own comic, and it's like, why would you be doing that?
Fat material.
Right, but he's got the original sketches.
He doesn't want to ruin those.
That's great. All right. Good call.
He's clearly jerking off to his own comics, Steve.
I like to imagine he'd been, well, it's a few years too early, but I otherwise like to imagine he's in there buying a bunch of the, was it Loeb fucking Captain America with a chest that's 3 times too big?
Yeah. Liefeld?
Yeah, Liefeld, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you're living here now again?
Yeah, I just got back.
Yeah. Well, when this place closes down, I go down to this place right off the strip for coffee. They read poetry, do jazz, you know.
Problem is, you know, I just got back into town, as I said, and I haven't really got my feet, on the ground. But it's really nice of you to ask. Thank you.
Hey, Deebs, why don't you do a book on that guy you murdered? You know, that guy you found in bed with your wife.
So, do I... Oh, thanks. So maybe some other time. Thanks.
Who are you?
Who am I?
Who are you? Yes.
I'm Jack Deebs.
Really? I didn't even realize that. Nice meeting you, Jack.
Nice to meet you.
Stay well. Yeah, thank you.
See ya.
Another thing we learn here in this scene, Steve, is that women want this man, but he doesn't want them unless they're drawn, you know? Like the hot clerk says, like, why don't you come fuck me after work?
He's not interested in all.
Because you're not animated.
Right, you're too real for me.
Not into it, baby.
I also like that old man in the comic shop who's there for no reason. And he just looks at Gabriel Byrne and goes, who are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
he's getting an autograph. He's like, who are you?
It's like about having fat in a scene. Like, that is... Why is that there? We know. Like, the audience knows. We don't need to hear it again. Like,
it's strange that after the clerk picks out who he is, everyone suddenly wants his autographs. Like 30 seconds ago, none of you even knew who this dude was. Now you want his signature? I don't know.
But, you know, there's a little bit of bouncing around between the real world and the cool world, the animated world. And Deebs does get sent back to the cool world where he is kind of like abused by some of his animations. One of them is a guy called Slash. He's like a baby, but he's kind of like the baby from Bebe's Kids because he's also like
terrible.
Yeah,
and he's got little razor hands. But the way you phrase that, and I'm not picking on you, but the way you phrase that brings up another interesting point. Deebs is convinced the entire time that this is his world and he created it. But Brad Pitt has been in there since the 40s, before Jack Deebs would have even been born. I mean, Jack Deebs is like a 40-year-old man in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So there's this constant implication where Deebs keeps saying, this is my world, and Brad Pitt's character keeps saying, no, it's not. Like, this world existed independently. But they never flush that out in a way that makes any sense. It's like, well, if it's not Deebs' world and it existed decades before he was born, then why is he drawing all these characters? Where did it come from?
Right. And like, why is this being brought up if it has no impact on the narrative?
Right. And that's another fragmented leftover because in Bakshi's original, it was a world that the Jack character created and escaped to for a while and then left. And they, for some reason, conflated that in the rewrites, where now it's like Deeds thinks he created this world, but he actually didn't. But if he didn't, then how is it possible he's drawing Holly, who's a character who existed magically, nebulously 35 years before him? None of it really makes any sense.
Freeze, asshole. Cool World Police.
Albert!
Up against the wall. Get your hands off me.
Where are your manners here?
You be quiet. Hey, who are you? Who are you? I didn't create you. No shit, Sherlock. What'd you do with this, dude?
I'm a cartoonist. I drew all this. I have visions. I have visions. I translate this.
You do nothing, man. This place exists with or without you. You believe me, right? I'm not one of your creations.
Oh, you're not pretty enough.
Good one. Have a seat. Ordinary fountain pen, right?
Yeah.
Wrong. Around here, sit down. Around here, this can be a big nuisance. Get it? One should be careful how they wave this thing.
No, I don't get it.
Of course you don't get it, because you're a wackadoo. But here you are, Jack. And around here, everything goes. Everything except one thing.
Yeah, what?
What's that?
Noids do not have sex with doodles. Right? Noids do not have sex with doodles. It's the oldest law in Cool World. I've never had to enforce it, but you cross that line, and I'll slap you around and make you piss like a puppy. Jack, you think she's got a thing for you, don't you? That's sweet. But don't flatter yourself. She's a waste of ink.
Oh, yeah?
Truth is, she's been after me and every other Noid who's come through here. It's just that no one's been insane enough to get involved with her. You keep your pencil in your pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember that, officer.
You can go now.
Where'd you get your hair done, by the way?
Get out of here. All right, the show's over.
So, Harris, you could have beat him. You could have beat him. You could have been somebody. Oh, you're not yellow, are you?
But over in the Cool World, Frank and Deebs, they do meet each other because, you know, Frank seeks him out. How does that go down, Stevie, when Frank gets in his face? He's pretty aggressive with the man, right?
He's aggressive with everything. Like, Brad Pitt unfortunately goes from 0 to, like, it's either 1 or a 10 in every scene he's in. There's no very little nuance with his performance, but it's very just borderline aggressive. And you guys bring up a good point. Nothing pays off in this movie, right? It's very dip your toe in the water, then pull out and go do something else.
Yeah.
It's a very unfortunate part of this film because you have, I think, not just one singular vision, but if you take a step back, look at it objectively, I think having Jack Deebs be Frank's son would have been cool. Because, like, time doesn't exist in the Cool World. And I think Frank, like, seeing Jack Deebs grow up from afar, like, even though keeping the real world going, but still visiting, like, Deebs throughout his life and kind of just imprinting what the Cool World is to him. Like, so he could have kind of gotten that idea of, like, what the Cool World was and, like, you know, expanding upon it while his dad, while not in his life, is keeping his dream world, like, alive in theory. Like, that's something cool to do because that could have answered a question at least versus, like, it's not your world, it's mine. No, it's, you know, my world, but it's not. Like, that at least could have answered a question somewhere in there.
Absolutely.
Well, it have been confusing or conflated. At least we would have gotten an answer somewhere in there. But to answer that question of how does, you know, the first meeting go down, it's just very, like, watch your back. Brad Pitt trying to do this weird accent, like, tough detective type deal. He kind of goes in and out of this accent throughout this film. It's very strange. Yeah, it's just very 10 from Brad Pitt the entire time for that first kind of meeting between the two.
No, you're totally right. I mean, and it's one of the saddest parts to me about retconning Bakshi's original idea. Not to say that it would have been incredible or anything, but that idea that the animated character was supposed to be this son that got left behind in the animated world. There would have been more of a connection there that they could have built on, and yeah, the whole thing's very lacking in substance.
And I know I'm going through the plot like in the order in which we see it unfold in the movie, but Steve, a lot of this movie isn't necessarily those core plot points, right? When they're in the cool world, there's a lot of time spent with just like what I would call wacky horse shit going on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and we're going to keep revisiting that because it's yet again another one of those like fragmented leftovers of Bakshi's original idea that should have either been expanded on or cut out completely. He really wanted to build a whole world there. He wanted it to be engrossing. He wanted there to be a big chunk of the movie where you were in that world, seeing what it was like. Who were the side characters? What is this place? What are these people doing? What makes it different from reality? And what you end up with are these fragmented little bits of it, and they're actually the parts of the film, not only the parts of the film that I like best, but probably the only parts of the film that I actually like. Those are the parts of the movie that make me, every 5 years or so, want to go back and rewatch this, and yet they are almost totally irrelevant to the rest of the movie. And it's strange. It's like watching this fragmented montage where certain parts of it, for me, pay off, and the rest is just like this connective tissue that probably didn't even need to be there. But yeah, it's interesting. You get to see a lot of what's going on with these side characters. There's the detective, not really a detective. He's I don't know, what do you even call that guy? He's just like a thug who exists within this world, who's obsessed with Holly and wants her for himself.
Sparks, yeah. I thought he would play a bigger role in the story.
Yeah, exactly. And again, he was meant to, and then they kind of wrote his part of it out so that he ends up becoming nothing other than this, like, he's another guy that is interested in Holly. He was supposed to be a much bigger character. The whole thing's very, very uneven.
Yeah, and, like you said, I think it might come up a few times, but there are times when the look of Cool World really stands out as being like a great piece of art.
Yeah.
And I think it's most noticeably so with the backdrops, like the twisted buildings.
Yeah.
Like the faces, like the roads, which are like, I don't know, like a Hot Wheels track that's like decrepit and warped.
Right.
It's like a Tim Burton-y, dark, like it's always night at Cool World. It's never daytime.
And this is the part of the movie, this is the exclusive part of the movie that I will actually defend. I think those backdrops are beautiful. They gave it a really nice look. They're huge. They built these gigantic sets and a soundstage in Las Vegas, and all of the prop pieces that go along with it, the hydrants, the cars. We've got it running on a screen here in the background. There's a moment where Brad Pitt is supposed to be driving to his girlfriend's apartment in his car, and when the car is moving through the landscape, it's a normal animated piece, but as soon as he gets out of it, it turns into a flat prop piece because he's outside of it now. And those details are where the only places where it pays off for me. God, I actually feel bad I'm forgetting his last name, is Barry something, who did the backdrops for this movie. I think he did a great job. Absolutely.
Clearly the person that like shined at their job in this movie, right?
Right. Yeah, I this is really like was a showpiece for him and some of the animators. And another little note to that end that I'll throw in, and it kind of goes to your comment earlier about some of the inconsistency, is because this was such an evolving thing and Mancuso was making changes to the script on the fly, they didn't have reliable shooting scripts to give to the animators. So Bakshi, who was running the animation team himself, had to go into work every day and basically just give them these very vague, nebulous ideas and say, just do the best you can with this concept because I can't give you anything more substantial. And it's amazing that they were able to make it turn out as well as they did in that specific regard, given how little input they were getting.
That's kind of insane.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially for the animation team, that's kind of insane.
Right, and that's, again, one of the few reasons I will defend that part of the movies. I think those people did an exceptionally good job with the animated parts of it, considering how hard their job was made for them.
But there's clearly bad decisions made involving the animation, because sometimes they just throw a bunch of shit in the foreground for no reason other than to, like, clutter up a scene and to, like, add something for the eyes. Like, there'll be two characters in a scene, maybe a Noid and a Doodle there in Cool World.
Right.
And then just like a ton of random coyotes will run by smashing each other in the head with hammers.
See,
and
that-
it's like completely unnecessary. And like, if it was a little bit of that, which there is sometimes, it's okay. But when it's like 20 characters all in the foreground are suddenly there and suddenly gone, I don't think that adds anything.
And I understand why that would bother you, so I'm not trying to mute your point, but that element didn't bother me. I kind of almost enjoyed that part. It gave it kind of a Toontown-esque feeling to me, but I can definitely see why for others it would be like, not great.
To me, it seems like such an afterthought. It seems like they rewatched the Toontown scenes of Roger Rabbit and were like, oh, we need some more of this stuff. Just add it to the top.
It may have been, and in fact, it may have even been something like that directed from Mancuso's end, because he kept going back to Roger Rabbit as the thing they were supposed to aspire toward. And I think Bakshi kept going back to him and saying, you're screwing us out of being able to do anything like that. And he didn't really get it.
So like I was saying, the afterthought kind of animation does bother me, but like, the clearly scripted moments are sometimes pretty cool. Like when Brad Pitt, like as a detective in this world, peeks around a corner and he sees some like little animals like having a dice game, and they're like, "Hey, get out of here, copper!" Like stuff like that is kind of like this is the world where they shoot dice, right? They drink, they bet on things. You know, there's more violence, I think, in this world.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more debauchery than there would be in something like Toontown.
I agree.
And that's cool.
Right.
The little animated character Slash pisses on the cops.
Right.
I hate that whole scene aside from that moment. Right? I like that they're willing to go there. Like, he takes a piss in their face.
Interesting. I like that scene, but I get why you wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, these cops are just shooting up in the air, and it's just like, to me, it's just like a waste of time to get to the next point. But there's some cute moments in there.
Right. God, it looks so cool. I just love the way that looks. Anyway.
Like how the buildings are sometimes a face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the way they got the lights in the animated scenes from the buildings, the bat glow, it just parts of it. I like right here. I wish the listeners could see what we're looking at. Where like it's so perfectly blended. Like here's the way a human would see this whole thing working. It's this blend of real and not real.
Hey, Jack. I've been waiting for you. You like looking at me, Jack, don't you?
Man is in the bedroom.
Run, girls, run!
Stevie, Jack Deebs shows up in Cool World. He leaves. He shows up. He leaves. But there's a point in the movie where he shows up, and he's here to do the deed. Why don't you tell us about the deed itself?
Like making it? Is that what you're talking about when they make it?
He's gonna make it with a doodle.
They've mentioned multiple times here that humans and animated characters are not supposed to sleep together, but they've never told you why. The only thing you know is it's against the rules.
Which is like confusing to me because, okay, what happened when they did it that first time, right?
Right.
Like, what was the fallout of the last time this happened? And now we have order because we don't do that anymore. And here's repercussions, what happens when you do it, right? Like, is this, a wives' tale? Is this a myth? Has this happened? Like, backstory would be kind of cool.
Right? Like, what's the precedent for this rule?
Who was patient zero when this happened? What happened in the cool world and what happened in the real world when this happened the first time?
This is where Robin Williams came from.
Oh, God. You see, Stevie, a Caribbean flight attendant had an affair with an animated character, and...
Yeah, it just, Deebs is going to make it. And so we get this really busy kind of, I wouldn't call it quite yet porn, but I mean, I imagine Korey, this is where this confused you as a child or made you feel weird.
Yes.
This scene, especially, we get a lot of busy shots of, I guess, Holly's, thugs in command or side thugs, like trying to build, the Tower of Babel to see what happens when she has sex with a Noid.
She's been seducing Deebs. She's calling to him.
Yeah.
She wants to have sex with any Noid, but she's
Any Noid.
Any Noid.
Yeah, but Deebs seems like the one that's gonna do it, which happens. But the peculiar part is there's an inference to an orgasm that produces a red fart that blows a window out and also blows our side characters out. And we get some, I guess, decent kind of transitions of the characters falling that I didn't mind. But the reason this payoff doesn't work is because, okay, we know it's going to happen, but what are the repercussions that could kind of lie to itself, right? Who are the narrators that could lie to us about what happens, like when you do something like that? Not just straightforward, okay, we kind of get the idea that, she gets made, or, they make it that, the animated character can now become human. That's kind of inferred that the entire time, but why is it bad? Not just, okay, they did that, now Holly's a human.
Why is it bad? That's a very good question.
That's a good question.
Because later we learn this could destroy the goddamn universe. But how?
Why?
Which should have paid off at the end and really kind of doesn't.
It's like in those cheap 90s kids movies where they go in a cave of some kind, and the cave is always collapsing and they have to escape it. And sometimes there's literally no reason. Example, Three Ninjas Kick Back, which is essentially at the end of the day a treasure hunt movie. And they go in the cave, they get the treasure. The cave is collapsing, shaky cam. We got to get out of here.
Right.
It's just one of those things. Everything has to be crumbling, right? And they have to be able to stop it or escape it. When I was a kid, I saw this movie, and what I remembered for the rest of my life about it is this scene, but only because of the rule. Well, also because I remember it being a little bit more graphic. I think I kind of fleshed it out more in my mind what happened. I thought there was nudity.
You were adding bits to it.
I may have conflated this with heavy metal in some ways, Steve.
Oh, yeah, well, heavy metal goes hard that direction.
Yeah, heavy metal is borderline porn at times.
But at least in heavy metal, none of them are flesh and bone humans. They're all animated characters.
Right.
Yeah.
Better movie. Heavy metal.
God, yeah, it's a good one. They actually way more modern, but some of the people associated with the modern incarnation of heavy metal did a series for Netflix called Love, Death, and Robots. There's some great content in that.
Is there porn?
Not nearly to the same degree.
Then it's not for me.
Right.
I mean, there's some sexually animated scenes in there, but they push the story forward. They're not just porn to be porn.
Right, exactly. But I mean, heavy metal was definitely another one of those. When I was first time I saw that at 10 or 11, I was like, yeah, I'll be watching this again.
Oh boy. So here's the thing I remember, guys, about this movie. I didn't get to finish it. When you have sex with a cartoon, they become real. So I told my wife we're doing a podcast on Cool World. She said, what's that like? I said, it's like there's real people and animated characters interacting. And if you have sex with a cartoon, they become real and someone does it. Which, you know what? It's not a bad summary of the movie.
No, it really isn't. It's like the core of it right there.
But shouldn't there be a balance to the Earth? Like, if a human in the Cool World has sex with an animated character, shouldn't they take their place and now be animated?
I think that should be like the unforeseen consequence or something like it.
Right.
Yes, there's a balance to the Earth. If you add one to a universe, you need to add another to the other. Like, there should be a balance.
They do try to add some unforeseen consequences, but they're largely nonsensical in nature.
Yeah.
One thing about Holly's sex scene, which they call it making it, a Noid is gonna make it with a doodle. The whole world of Cool World gets sexually charged in the moment. While they're doing it, the whole world is aware of it. And they're all getting horny.
Yeah, well, Holly turns it into an exhibition thing for whoever else happens to be in the room, and Jack doesn't seem to care.
Was it good for you?
It wasn't what I expected.
Yeah, it's lots of fun. Some of the doodles watch. And then, Steve, what happens to Holly right after?
Holly becomes Vicky Vale, apparently. No, she turns into a real human being somehow. And look, Kim Basinger's a beautiful woman. She was a model before she was an actress, but she's not as attractive in real life as Holly is supposed to be as an animated character, in my opinion.
Holly does it for you?
Holly does it more for me than she does, absolutely. But no, she becomes a real person and then proceeds to give a pretty typically very awkward Kim Basinger performance. She never seems to understand what she's doing. You can see it in more than one movie. There's a scene, I mentioned to you in a text message, there's a scene between her and Knox in Batman 89 where it's like, are you sure you understand what you're supposed to be reading? It's amazing to me Burton even kept that take. It's so awkward.
She's talking about Hello Legs?
Yeah, and his role is perfect, but there's a moment in there where they're talking about, God, right before she tells him she's got tickets to Wayne's fundraiser, where she's supposed to be acting like she's thinking about something or being cute or sly, and it's just like, wait, why are you acting like someone hit you over the head? Like she's brain damaged and doesn't know how to speak like a grown-up. I don't know. Very weird. But yeah, so she's a real person. Now, and the first thing she does is go show off her human body to the cavalcade of animated characters hanging out outside, which in turn means that she can now go to the real world, which has really been her goal the entire time. We haven't touched on that a lot, but she doesn't want to be in Cool World anymore. She thinks that there's way more for her in reality and wants to cross the bridge, but does seem to understand that it wouldn't be the same if she's not a flesh and bone person when she gets there. She seems to understand to be better for her to be real first, but you're also making yourself mortal. Like you're the queen, the immortal queen of this world. You get whatever you want. Everyone lusts after you. There are no rules for you. And what you want to do is become immortal and go live in reality. I don't get why you'd want to do that.
Yeah, but she does want the human experience. You're absolutely right. That's the thing she's been craving since the first moment we saw her.
Right.
Jesus, why the hell did you do it? What are those curtains you're wearing?
Oh, you look horrendous. You look horrible. You look like a high school hippie piece, man.
That's right, boys. I made it.
Halt! In the name of the law! Halt, I say!
Well, howdy, Nail. As you see, there have been some changes around here.
You are a biomorphic menace! I forbid you to take one step out of the cool world!
You eight-armed ink spot. Who do you think you're dealing with? I'm real.
You made it with the noise! You don't know what you are! Mark my words, girly pie! You leave here, and it is trouble for you, too!
I'm leaving, Pencil Dick. You just try and stop me.
Don't do it! Don't do it, girl! Oh!
What was kind of a letdown in this movie, though, is like Holly is still Holly when she goes from animated to human. I feel like a better transition would be her playing dumb, to make it to turn human. And then that human side is kind of like her brilliant side of, she's been plotting this for years, right?
That would have been good.
This is the intelligent, not just the dumb bimbo. This is someone who's a control. This is a human that isn't just your regular human that we see on the strip where, she seems kind of like a dumb bimbo in animated form. But when we get in that human form, this is like the domineering, controlling kind of, plotting person that was actually behind the lens the entire time. She just had to make it for us to get there. I feel like that transition would have been really strong.
I agree with you. That would have been great. Where that veil drops, and it's like, nah, this was me the whole time. The bimbo bit was to get everyone else to get along with what I wanted them to do.
Yes,
because what we get is just her being slightly more nefarious, right?
Yeah,
she's kind of more willing to She's
also a moron. She's got no idea what she's doing or what she really wants. She doesn't understand why she wants the thing she's after. She just knows she wants to go to the real world and find this thing. The only real motivation for her, which we also failed to mention up till now, is that there's apparently this urban legend within Cool World that an animated character once crossed over and became a super successful casino owner. But they never expand on that at all.
Yeah, we don't even know if that's really
true or not.
Wasn't that just Whiskers?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The only real payoff on that you get is in the end, it turns out that Whiskers was in the real world, but he wasn't doing anything there. He's basically a hobo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm led to believe he's more of a hobo type than a casino owner.
Right.
I mean, they call him Vegas Vinny, but, like, he introduces himself as Dr. Vincent Whiskers. Like, okay.
Right? Like, where did that story even come from?
Where's that payoff?
But Holly, she's not playing nice, really, right?
No.
Because we got Brad Pitt's partner, who I think is supposed to be a spider, but has 6 limbs instead of 8. Not a big deal. The partner, his name's Nails. You know, he's a good guy. He's with Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I think he's the Roger Rabbit / Taxi stand-in.
Agree.
From Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He's kind of both of those characters combined.
Benny. This movie's Benny.
But also with a bit of the zaniness of Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
You're gonna go in there and make it up to Lynette, boss?
Yeah, why not? Fact is, she's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Oh, I could put overtime in on Deep's, boss. I'm tireless.
Forget it. The goons can't touch him in Sweet Place, and we just run ourselves ragged, giving him the shadow.
What should I do?
Man, the phones keep pumping our informants. Somebody might ID him. And if that happens, you call me. You call me here, or Lynette's, or my place, I don't know. Just don't make a move without me, you got it?
I got it, boss.
So you got to have like that character for like, I think people to latch on to, but I don't find him particularly endearing.
I kind of like him, but I don't love him. I see where you're coming from. Like, I sort of like the fact that he's there, but I also view him as being yet another one of those remnants that got left in for no good reason. He was supposed to be that noirish partner, the kind of character you would have found in a noir detective movie, except they don't really utilize him much except for to kind of be an idiot occasionally. And he's not there very often. And when he is, what he's doing is not really very substantial. And
I'm allergic to clouds.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
This is getting us somewhere.
It's another idea I think they either should have allowed to be expanded on or just excised from the movie completely. Because the way he's there, he didn't need to be there.
And he gets sucked into a pen. To quote the Joker, Steve.
The pen is truly mightier than the sword.
Except nobody gets stabbed in the head in this one.
Yeah.
Like
the neck, Steve, the neck.
The neck, that's right. You know, Ledger did it through the eye in his version, but fine. But yeah, that's another one that they don't really pay off. That there's a point where Jack has recently arrived in Cool World and he gets warned, pens are dangerous here. And they don't really explain why. And then it turns out that, like, you can use the pen to redraw parts of the world, sort of. They suggest that you could, but he never really does that. And then what it turns out actually happens is it's like a reverse super soaker, and you can suck the animated characters into it.
You can pump it and they go in.
Right? That would have been a way more interesting plot point if Jack had realized at some point that a pen from the real world actually could redraw Cool World, and then he just started like reframing it, and that they never even try anything like that.
No, the pen thing is weird plot contrivance. Clearly things were changed along the way, but there was somehow the pen still left in.
Right?
That was supposed to be a big deal.
Yeah. Again, I mean,
that pen was supposed to be a huge deal.
Yes. Yeah, and that's like, I mean, we keep mentioning, that's the recurring theme across this whole movie is you can just see dozens of different examples where there was something that would have been bigger, that they would have expanded on, that would have been more important, that probably would have been better, that they halfway edited it out and then didn't finish. And it's like, you should have just ditched the whole script at that point. Just throw the entire thing out, write something different.
I'll have one of each.
Holly, I'm in having fun and everything, but you gotta slow down, okay?
What do I want to slow down for? I'm gonna get everything I ever wanted. You think any of these men are gonna say no to Holly? Not on your life, pal. Gentlemen, Thurblons.
And now we kind of get into this shit show because Holly and Deebs, they transport over to the real world. And I think mostly anything of value that this movie had going for it is lost here.
No, and per what we were talking about, what Stevie really brought up about the aging element, I'm willing to buy the idea that somehow Pitt's character wouldn't age while he was in Cool World, but he's been gone from reality for like the better part of 5 decades or close to it. It would have been a lot neater if as soon as he'd gotten back to the real world, like suddenly his body started aging. Like the Cool World rules no longer protect you here. You're 45 or whatever years older than you were when you went.
What they show us is that he arrives back in the real world in the same state he left it.
Yeah.
So he's like dinged up. He's got that big ass suit on, right? He's got the scratches from the accident.
Yeah.
But also knows how the world works and is not a fish out of water whatsoever.
That's also a really good point. You've been gone for 40 plus years. You're not going to stop and go, whoa. The one part of this is my favorite live action part of the whole film, and only because you get to see what Vegas still looked like in 1992, which I think is fantastic. Like, especially if you're younger, you don't appreciate. There's been a lot of change on the Strip just in the last 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
In the early 90s Vegas was still a remnant of 50s, 60s, 70s era Vegas, which is basically all gone now. Most of the hotels you see in the movie have been demolished in the last 30 years and replaced with other stuff. It's a whole different Vegas. It still feels reminiscent of the old Vegas.
The plaza is still there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. This was really their last opportunity to do that. If this movie had been made 10 years later, most of that wouldn't have been there anymore.
I am a big fan of 90s Vegas.
Me too.
I know it's not like the most popular era of Vegas.
My favorite, one of my favorites.
I'm glad. I think it's because people our age have nostalgia for it.
Right.
But that was like Disney Vegas.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean...
The glitz and the glamour.
Right?
Well, like
yes.
the kid-oriented experience. Like they turned Vegas into the family vacation.
Yeah, it's like the grown-ups can still gamble and get debauched, but there's stuff for your kids to do here, too.
Every casino has a ride.
Right?
You know?
The last time I was in Vegas, I'm walking through whichever casino Cirque du Soleil is performing in now. I can't remember which one.
There's like 3 it's performing in.
Okay, so it was one of the 3 then. Yeah. And it was not where they're doing Cavalli. It was one of the other shows. But like midnight in a casino filled with drunks with cigarettes hanging out of their mouths. Their parents with like 12-year-old kids in line to get into the Cirque du Soleil show. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Your kid should have been out by the pool 6 hours ago and should be in bed by now. Like, that's crazy. That is not a kid environment.
But it used to be like very like, you know, Disney-fied, like I said. Lindsay Ellis has a great video about 90s Vegas.
I've heard so many older people say Vegas was better when the mob ran it. Like, it's the only example I can think of where anyone would say that.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point, though, because, like, think of it this way. Casino came out in, what, 91, 92, somewhere in there?
It's about right.
92, 93, maybe? Like,
yeah.
When they filmed that movie, it still looked like old Vegas.
Yeah. And some of the old hotels were still there.
Yeah, they filmed it at the Riviera, for crying out loud. It looked like, you know, kind of that glitzy, starlit, you know, bright light Vegas that you once knew.
Yeah. God, it's kind of sad, man. It's sad to me that they'd rather, I get why, but that they'd rather tear them down than refurbish them.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Let's make love.
Hey, she's with me.
No, she's with us.
Hey, whoa!
There!
Hit it.
Here we sit and we chat. What are we thinking of? Let's not make with the patter, baby. Let's make love.
Stevie in Vegas, we got Hollywood acting a fool. What's she up to in Vegas, experiencing real world life for the first time?
There's a lot of awkwardness. You can definitely tell there's some stuff that was certainly plotted in the movie that awkwardly got whisked away, but they left over things that didn't make sense. So when they're kind of at that, you know, restaurant with the singer, you know, that club with the singer.
Yeah, that like bar lounge.
Yeah, she goes up there and It's very awkward because she leaves Gabriel Byrne behind, who gets tossed by the most 90s looking kind of bouncer you're ever going to see in your entire life.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe that. And she goes on to pretty much insinuate like sex with the lounge singer on stage. It's very awkward.
Yeah.
She kind of behaves just like a drunken idiot, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, which it just bothers me. That's what really bothers me about her character in human form is she's no different than the animated form.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that works if Holly is the main character and we start at ground zero with her, but we're an hour and 20 minutes into this movie. Like, nothing has changed besides Kim Basinger is now on screen as herself, not just a voice. So it just seems, like you said, she's acting a fool throughout the city, but it becomes very apparent that something was lost in translation along the way during the song part of it.
No, I agree. There's that Madonna song, Material World. You know, basically the whole point is my only goal in life is to look pretty enough to get stuff from men. And I feel like that's Holly in this movie. Like, that's the only point of her. My only point in existing.
That song is her religion.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My only point in existing is to be attractive enough to be given stuff. And it's like, that's not, thank you, but there's no depth to that.
The fun only lasts so long, Steve, because Holly and Deeves, they start to transform into like stupid looking doodles. Like, how would you describe? Because it's not
like
Holly's,
Clown World doodles.
It's like Holly's not the hot Holly animated version.
And this doesn't make any sense on any level. Like, why are they transitioning back? Why would Deebs be switching back and forth when he was never animated to begin with? And why would she be alternating between a real version of Holly and an animated version of some other character?
They got like doodle STDs going on now.
Lost remnants.
Right, more Lost Remnants, exactly.
Lost remnants.
This movie just suffered so much from Mancuso not understanding what Bakshi had pitched and ruining it. I was looking over my notes. I forgot I sort of touched on this before, but Bakshi actually did try to walk at one point over what they were doing, and the studio actually threatened to sue him if he left. And I think that's the only reason he didn't walk off the project completely. I think he really, especially the way he talks about this film in interviews, I really think he would have walked off a quarter of the way through production and told them to take his name off it. And he really just didn't have a choice.
Bakshi is not to blame for this disaster, Steve.
Maybe in a marginal way, but like, I'm not going to say every choice he made under the circumstances was right, but when you pitch something to a studio and they buy it, and then they lock you into being involved and put you in a position where you'll get sued if you walk.
It seems like he signed a bad contract.
It may be, yeah.
And this is not a man that is new to Hollywood at this point. So, like, how did this happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's real interesting. I think this happens quite a lot, though, even with bigger filmmakers, where, like, the studio gets a lot of the power, and then they start manipulating things after you've signed on. And I think Bakshi was probably naive. He'd never done anything, I think, quite this huge before. Like, as much as he'd produced some other really well-loved sci-fi material, none of it was intended to be mainstream. And I think that's what could caught him. Yeah.
So this happens in a lot of movies too. And, you know, the famous meme is, you know, George Lucas watching
Phantom Menace,
watching with the execs for Phantom Menace, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I've gone too far in a few places. If you're not careful in a lot of movies, and a lot of movies suffer from this, is where you can't make something grandiose out of a little brick. Because what happens is, if you remove that little brick, you have to remove that thing that's grandiose, right? It's where you kind of get those lost payoffs. And that tells me that when they're kind of going back and forth of like animated, where Holly's going to the clown and, you know, Deebs is getting these Mickey Mouse hands while driving, someone else is holding the pen.
Yeah.
Which would be a small brick in the movie. But when this is happening, it's, you know, something a little more grandiose. So when we're getting that happening, it makes zero sense in the context of the film.
Right. No, I agree with you. And to your point, in that moment you're talking about, if you watch that footage, and I know Korey has seen this too, Lucas and McCullum have that realization that they have really fucked the pooch badly. But then Lucas immediately admits we can't fix any of it without reshooting the entire movie.
Yes.
Like, you'd have to go back to the beginning. So we're stuck with what we've got.
Fuck it.
Right? We'll make up for it by having Anakin murder a bunch of little kids.
Exactly.
Emo Anakin.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Emo Anakin. I love that.
We'll make this work later.
Please just let me think. Let me think.
Cool, Jack. Really cool. I guess you have a tough time driving and thinking at the same time, huh? Oh! Spike of power!
The what?
The spike could heal me. Oh, Vegas Vinny put the spike at the top of the casino.
You're nuts. You are nuts.
Don't say I'm nuts. I've had enough ego out of you, pal. And you used to think you made me up.
You're thinking like a doodle, Holly. There is no spike of power.
There's gotta be a spike of power. And I'm gonna find it right now.
No, you're not. Okay? Yeah.
We're going there, Jack.
No, we're not.
You're a nice fellow, Jack. Don't piss me off.
So Holly and Deebs, things aren't going well. They're freaking out. Holly eventually kicks him in the face and kind of ditches him. And then Frank, very reluctantly, Brad Pitt, comes into the real world. Now, he doesn't want to. He is a man that has escaped his life of having a dead mother and I guess having PTSD, which they never mention again. But he reluctantly comes into the real world and he kind of confronts Deebs. This is the one point in the movie when I think Brad Pitt gives a decent performance when he's acting against Deebs here in the real world, right? So they're in a real room. There's two real people. And I think, Brad Pitt's kind of giving him shit, but I think it works in this moment.
Yeah.
This is the one time that I'll give it some credit.
Right.
What are you doing here, Harris?
I'm taking you and the bimbo back.
What are you gonna do, shoot me?
Why don't you shoot me, goddammit? Shoot me, Harris.
Don't push me. Don't push me. You just couldn't take a piece of good advice, could you? No, Jack, you had to listen to your Johnson.
I've had it with you, Harris.
I've had it with you, goddammit!
You've had it with me? You've had it with me, you piece of shit! You screw us all for a piece of ass, and you've had it with me. Where is she? What's happening, Jack?
Got news for you, Harris. It's happening to her, too.
But they got to stop Holly. And Holly is out there looking for Vegas Vinny, which eventually leads her to Doc Whiskers. She discovers that this cartoon character that kind of started this whole thing is in the real world. And for some reason, he tells her about the spike. He's like, yeah, the spike, yeah, it's real. I've held it. I had it once.
I think, this I'm guessing at slightly, that the original idea was supposed to be that if Holly got a hold of the spike, and this never made it into the movie, I'm talking about like pre-production versions of the script, that if she got a hold of the spike, she'd have some way of merging Cool World and the real world together.
What is this, Mortal Kombat Annihilation?
Exactly.
Let's go.
Kind of a vague sense of that remained, but because they screwed it, it's like she wants this spike desperately, but I still don't understand what the hell she was going to do with it. I don't.
I guess it's to cure the clown lady syndrome she has going on, but it really doesn't. Just keeps her animated. It kind of defeats the purpose of what she wants. Right? She wants to be a human woman. The spike doesn't make her a human woman. It does quite the opposite.
I'm also going to draw a parallel to the meteorite piece in the live-action Mario Brothers movie, where they can merge Dino World with the real world with Dennis Hopper, who I'm not going to refer to as Bowser because that's not fucking Bowser.
Koopa.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of like a chase in the real world to get the spike, which is just a MacGuffin. It's an animated glowing MacGuffin, which happens to be at the very top of the Plaza Hotel in Las Vegas.
That's right.
Where the neon sign is, it's like right there.
Yeah.
So you got to get to the roof of this hotel. You got to climb some very shoddy electrical work, and you got to get to it. So, Frank is here. He's our hero, right? So he's chasing after her. And during this chase, Steve, they go up some stairs, right? They're going up the flight of stairs. They don't take the elevator. They got a long trip. He grabs her on this chase up the stairs and just like somehow slips over the railing. Just like due to his own like clumsiness, like just like a idiot, a clumsy fool slips over the railing. It's little stuff like that in this movie that is really fucking awful, I think.
Yeah.
Like just like they feel like a character, like something can happen to them. And there doesn't have to be a good reason for it. He just slips over a railing and he's hanging on for dear life because that's a thing that happens in movies.
Absolutely. Somebody's got to be hanging off a cliff or a balcony or something.
And then it happens again later, right?
Right.
But I want to flesh this one out a little bit more, right? They get to the top of the hotel. And this is where Brad Pitt as Frank, he has a gun on Holly. He's got the drop on her. He's like, all right, Holly, it's time to go back to Cool World. And she's like, sometimes transforming into the cartoon version, sometimes the human version. But the cartoon version obviously is this clown weird thing that she doesn't like. It's not hot, so she doesn't like it. She gets away from him when he has the drop on her through the power of slow motion.
Yeah.
Suddenly it becomes slow-mo, and she starts skirting away and just runs into a wall and falls down. And I'm like, what the fuck is this movie, dude? Did they give up?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really kind of feels like they did. You know, Mancuso and those two worthless writers got to the third act and were like, fuck it, just do whatever. I'm sick of this already.
Dude, the decisions that are happening here are so weird.
Yeah.
She falls down. She gets up. She just climbs out a window, and he just watches as she does it.
Right.
No real attempt to stop her.
No, you're right. He just sort of is kind of like, he keeps telling her not to, but won't actually do anything. His character the whole movie is really rather impotent to do anything at all when he actually needs to. He's full of threats.
Oh yeah.
Full of threats, but when something actually happens, you're not going to do anything about it.
And it's almost like that could be a character trait he overcomes, like the big mouth, the bravado, but he never really acts on it, and everyone kind of knows, so they push him around.
Right.
But eventually he has to step up. But I'd say he never really does step up in this movie whatsoever.
The closest he gets is for some reason deciding to go out the window after Holly, and there's no payoff to that.
Even then, he just stands like on the balcony while she climbs.
Right.
And then she outsmarts him very easily.
And at that point, yeah, I mean, like, number one, to what you just said, 100% agree. It is obvious what she's going to do. It is painfully obvious what she's going to do. He should have seen that, but even more, why not just let her die? I mean, seriously, what are you going to do with her if you get her back to Cool World? Put the now physically bodied Holly in an animated prison cell? Just let her fall. Like, there's no point in saving her.
Yeah, I mean, so many fucking questions going on here.
Right.
In fact, Deebs' neighbor, this kind of like cute blonde woman, is helping them out. And I kept thinking there was going to be something with her involvement in the story that would mean something.
Exactly. She's another remnant. She obviously likes him. She's clearly a decent woman and a good choice, and ends up helping them in the end. And there's really virtually no reason for her to have even been there.
And when they turned her animated, they really did her dirty.
They did.
Like, I feel like they spent the least amount of time on her animated version comparatively to every other person that starts turning animated.
It's true.
If I was her, I'd probably be pretty offended when I saw that. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Right?
Is this how you see me as a cartoon? That's gross.
I mean, she may not have even told anyone she'd been in the movie.
But Stevie, we got Holly climbing up. She's getting to the roof, and Brad Pitt is following her up there. What does she do?
Why does this exist, Korey? Like, there's, like you said, there's so many questions to be had, but like, out of all the questions that you could have, which is, first off, did he or did he not die in the beginning? Why does PTSD never come back? Like, ever?
Yeah.
It's just kind of frustrating. This part, to me, is probably the most frustrating part. I mean, there's a lot of frustrating parts of this movie, but this is one of them. Long story short, Frank gets pushed off the tower, right?
Yeah, he does. And this is like the top of a very tall Vegas hotel, so this is not some two-story building.
And mind you, we live in a world of the zaniest animated things that we can do possible right now, right? Like, animation is crossing over into this world. Why kill him twice? Save him with something. Turn Gabriel Byrne into a fucking superhero right there. Like, something a little more interesting than, well, not only did his body not explode, but he's just gonna lay there non-mangled, and we're gonna put some ketchup underneath his head. Like, it's a peculiar way of doing things, especially story-wise and execution-wise.
He's got to die so we can have that completely inexplicable transformation right at the end.
Yeah. The scariest one possible.
Right.
The scariest one possible.
Oh, the black eyes. Don't look into the eyes.
Right.
He looks like if they tried to make Big Boy hot, right? Like, that's what Brad Pitt looked like in this movie. So they tried to turn that Big Boy logo to be, like, hot. It's very off-putting.
He's Big Boy's swab brother.
Yeah.
He's the one pitching a personal training program instead of hamburgers.
Exactly.
But he does fall off the building. He doesn't leave like a blood stain of just gore on the cement, like you mentioned, Stevie. But that would be excessive for this movie because this movie is PG-13. But at the same time, this movie pushes that fucking PG-13 envelope pretty hard, man.
Fucking Mancuso.
I mean, Holly as a human woman, first of all, Kim Basinger is super hot.
She is.
And you can see her tits like pretty clearly sometimes. So that's one way it pushes the envelope. They swear a lot in this movie. They say shit. I think they say dickwad.
Yeah.
You know, this movie is pretty fucking hardcore for PG-13. If I looked up the rating and I saw that it was R, I wouldn't be surprised. And the fact that there's any blood at all underneath Brad Pitt's head when he falls is pretty surprising to me because if you watch a modern PG-13 movie, there is basically zero blood. They don't do blood in PG-13 anymore.
Do they still exist?
Yeah.
Yeah, like MCU movies.
We end up touching on this in so many of our podcasts. I'm not going to go into in detail now, but just suffice it to say that the way that the ratings are chosen is extremely arbitrary, not guided by any guidelines, and frequently make no sense at all.
Yeah.
Like,
for some reason, blood is the difference between PG-13 and R sometimes, which is just like crazy.
I'm just trying to think of, like, outside of a superhero movie, how many PG-13 movies do we get a year?
Yeah, it's just like movies like superhero movies and movies that are adjacent, like fast movies.
Or like YA novels,
Stevie?
maybe?
Yeah.
Like action movies, you know?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of PG-13 movies just coming out.
I feel like the Twilight movies must have been PG-13. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems right.
You know, but yeah.
But those were a while ago, Steve. You're an old man.
While.
Those seem recent to you because you're old.
Well, I am ancient. I'm not arguing that. But also, like, I have no context when those came out. You could tell me those were 2 years old or 20 years old, and I believe you.
I know. Once you get into our age range, it's like, what's the fucking difference?
Right? Yeah, I don't care.
Wasn't the 90s 10 years ago?
I mean, this is this year right now, this moment, they're doing screenings. It's the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace, which does not seem right at all to me.
Oh, I know.
Like, not to say that the movie's worth going back to, but... Yeah.
Well, with the death of Detective Frank Harris, Deebs has to step up. The comic book artist, Gabriel Byrne, he has to go up and save the day. It's his time to shine. So he projects himself up to the top of the roof where Holly is. But, you know, Holly does get... What do they call it? The spike.
Yeah.
She gets the spike. She gets the glowing MacGuffin. And then suddenly the movie becomes... Ghostbusters for a minute, Steve, because you remember in Ghostbusters when Walter Peck shuts them down?
Yes.
And like all hell breaks loose from the fire station and all the ghosts start like swarming out of the building.
So good. I've always loved that part of the movie.
And they're terrorizing New York.
Yes.
This movie wants to do that, but can't.
No, it can't. It doesn't get anywhere even remotely close. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is just a seminal moment in cinematic history.
That's later, but it's cool. It's cool.
Right.
But I mean, you know the comparison I'm making, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys know what I think about the spike? I put nothing past movie producers in trying to bundle everything into a package. I really don't.
No, I agree.
I was watching Days of Thunder yesterday.
Ooh.
Just because it was on in the background. And it had me thinking about that shot where Tom Cruise and Robert Duvall are running at the end, like racing each other.
Yes.
And you can see like mellow yellow, like across their shirts in huge bold.
Yeah.
Like, to me, the Spike was going to be a future drink. I really believe. Like, I almost got Mountain Dew, like Red Bull type drink. I really do. Like, I could see that from a mile away.
No, absolutely. And at least, not that that's a particularly fantastic movie, but at least in their case, it was a real drink, and that particular livery really existed. It's a very iconic looking NASCAR. I think they did a good job choosing that one for the film. But yeah, you're right.
Like, Spike was going to be like the pre-Surge drink.
God, Surge. What's the one called with the skull on it? I swear it's like Death Juice or something.
I think that's just water.
Oh, Liquid Death?
There you go, Liquid Death.
It's just water.
It's water?
Yeah, it's literally water.
I've never bought it before. I thought it was an energy drink.
I found that out 2 weeks ago. I was shocked when I found out it was water.
I'm shocked.
But people want to be edgy.
That's so disappointing.
Yeah.
I thought it was something way stupider. I mean, it's stupid, but I thought it was something really stupid.
It's like the best marketing campaign for water I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's literally just water, but you can drink it out of a tall can that looks like goth/rock and roll. So stupid.
Fucking God, that is stupid. Wow, TIL. I had no idea.
Death, bro. It's literally liquid life. Literally.
Yeah, like you need it to live.
So during the heroic moment, Steve, we got Deebs, and he transforms. So Gabriel Byrne exits this movie and is replaced by a superhero version, not of himself, but just like of a parody of like, I don't want to say Superman. It's more like a parody of DC's Captain Marvel.
You know what? Yeah, or Shazam.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
his
you're
name.
right.
Yeah,
it's Shazam. Yeah,
that's Shazam.
Yeah, wow, good man. I actually liked the first live action Shazam movie, and the second one seemed to just get totally ignored and bomb out of existence.
I saw the first one with you.
Yeah, we saw that one together. I thought it was fun.
I like that first one a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's up with this weird superhero cartoon guy that he is? Like, what is happening in this movie?
No, it doesn't make any sense that would be the animated version of Pitt's character is just kind of a stupider version of him. But you're right. They made him like the Superman equivalent, but with a peanut brain. Like he doesn't know how to do it. He's just a weirdo.
The world has only one chance left. It's up to me to return the spike and plug the hole. Oh, you fiends! Trying to stop me!
He's got like the
Dudley
dumb
Do-Right.
voice.
It's like Dudley Do-Right and
Oh my
Superman
God.
somehow blended their DNA together.
There it is, bro.
Like, yeah. Or George of the Jungle. It's just kind of a trope.
And a lot of the noids, the humans in the real world, are just suddenly transforming. It's causing a little bit of chaos. Like, the movie can't really decide if, like, people are ignoring it and are okay with it, or if it's disrupting them completely.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they just kind of carry on, right?
It's strange. Some people aren't really noticing it.
Because, like, it's like they're just filming extras, and they just decided later, we're going to make this one animated. So they don't react in any real way sometimes. No. Like the guy who becomes a snake, and then the woman next to him, it's like they don't change what they're doing. They just keep playing cards. Whatever. I don't know if that's supposed to be funny or not. You know?
I get the feeling they thought it was going to be.
What I would describe this whole area of the movie as, and it's only about 5 minutes or so, but like just unfunny chaos.
Yeah, and it really, I think, was supposed to be kind of like that moment where at the end of Roger Rabbit, they get Doom and the brick wall gets broken down and Toontown's on the other side. It's supposed to sort of be that, but not good.
Yeah. So let's make this not good.
Right?
At every turn. And then the background artist is like, fuck you. I'm making something good.
Right? I kind of feel like Bakshi and the animators working with him got to the point where they'd gotten so fucked with. I really think Bakshi was going in there and telling them, just do whatever you want. It doesn't matter anymore. They've already raped my idea. Just whatever.
But our hero now, who is, Deebs, he does get the spike. He kind of fights off some like cartoon henchmen. It's meaningless. It's mostly boring, really. But he brings back the spike, and then things in the real world are reset. So like the people that transformed are transformed back. The chaos is subverted, and then Deebs and Holly kind of disappear, but we see them a moment later. I'll talk about that in a sec. For now, I want to go over to you, Stevie, because the corpse of Brad Pitt is brought back to Cool World, and I want you to kind of tell us what happens there.
Who killed them, Nails?
He was pushed off a building.
Who pushed him?
Hollywood.
Hollywood? That bitch! Nails, was she a doodle when she aced him?
Yeah, so what?
So what? Oh, so what? Well, what happens to noids who traffic in the cool world, Nails? When they get killed by a doodle, they become a doodle themselves.
Hot dog. Dig it. Dig me. Ba-dum-bum. Bam!
Oh, my God! Oh, Nails, he's alive! And he's gorgeous, too.
Hubba bubba, baby. What do you think?
Oh, you're a hero, Harris. You saved the world.
So what are you waiting for? Come and get it.
Oh, Frankie. So did you do it while you were back there in the real world? Did you do it while you were real? Or do you ever think about going back there so you can?
There's no reason now.
They bring him back, right? And part of me was kind of checked out towards the end of this part, but it's not that I wasn't watching it. It's like my mentally just brain kind of shut off after we get kind of superhero Gabriel Byrne not as himself, which is just so peculiar that he would see himself as that or turn into that. You know what I mean? That to me should have been a much more meaningful part.
It's like an extremely disconnected character from who he is in any way.
It's confusing. To be honest with you, it's confusing.
It's not who he aspires to be. It's not who he is underneath the surface. It has nothing to do with him. So you're absolutely right.
I've never even considered until literally right now that might have been meant to be his internal image of himself, which you're right is totally disconnected. Makes why would you see yourself as the retarded version of Superman?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I mean,
God.
Yeah, you're right. It's like we end on that dumb version of Superman, right? It's extremely peculiar, but they drag his body back. I think, what's his girlfriend's name? Lynette?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's this stupid explanation where they kind of say, like, what is it? A human that gets killed by a doodle can be reborn in the animated world?
But he gets killed in the real world and becomes a doodle. This makes no sense at all.
Right, they bring him back.
They made up a rule on the spot.
Right?
Yeah, they made up a rule so they could, for some odd reason, they made up a rule, but he gets turned into the terrifying version of, like, Hot Big Boy, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, he's beautiful. I'm like, he has no nose and those eyes are real black.
The head's too tiny for the body. The whole thing's weird.
He's proto Johnny Bravo.
Oh my God, that's the best way of describing it anyone's come up with yet. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very peculiar in everyone's happy in the cool world, right? Like, and Lynette and Brad Pitt can have sex now.
They can have safe sex without the possibility of undoing space and time.
It's so weird.
That's the dream.
You don't have to pretend or lament every time they see each other. They can be like, oh yeah, we can have sex now. This is awesome. And then we get to some graphic stills, Korey, which is another confusing part of this movie.
Yeah, and we don't really know what happened to Holly and Deebs, but we get the answer to that pretty quickly.
What a beautiful landscape. Let's see. We can put the house over here, the studio over here. I'll still draw, of course. We'll raise children over here. I'll fight crime over there. Oh, we're going to be deliriously happy, honey poo.
Pencil dick.
They are not dead. They are, I guess, transported into their own world because they're in a different place than Cool World. The sun does not shine in Cool World, does it, Steve?
No,
So
it's
they're
weird.
in their own comic book, which I guess is of Deebs' making as the comic book guy. I guess if you want to kind of answer that question for yourself in your head, because it's never really said.
No.
And I guess that's fine, but it's like there's no satisfaction to like the ending of this, really.
No, you're right. I mean, it's kind of almost a weird play on the ending of Blade Runner, where you kind of like that moment where you realize that there's a world outside the polluted, dense, dark megalopolis that they've been stuck in up till then, that Deckard and Rachel try to escape to, except this doesn't pay off.
Steve, I'm surprised it took you this long to bring up Blade Runner, quite frankly, because you mention it every chance you get.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
But there is some, like, it's almost like animated Blade Runner world, like, in terms of, like, this just, like, damp, dark, gross place.
That's one of the things I find most disappointing about how this movie turned out, is I think we would have gotten a much more expanded, gigantic version of that if Bakshi had just gotten to make this the way he wanted. And again, I can't argue it necessarily would have been a great film, because nobody knows what it would have been, but at least there was an opportunity there for that, which I think would have been cool. We touched on a little while ago that those backdrops and the design of the city itself is really the only part of this movie that keeps drawing me back to it. It's the only part of it I ever want to see.
And that is the end of Cool World. You know, I guess the happy ending does happen for Frank Harris in his own way. He doesn't like the real world. He wants to stay in Cool World, and now he gets to be an animated character, and he can have sex. The dream has come true for him, I guess. Earlier in the movie, he referred to himself as a plug without a socket. So, you know, he's been looking for a socket. He's got the girl, and now he can plug it in. So,
God, that's so on the nose.
Like,
why?
And that's Cool World. So let's get into final thoughts. Stevie, this might be uncomfortable for you. I'm sure you have some final thoughts, but one I'm really hoping you can talk about is your opinions on Ralph Bakshi. I know you and Steve here might argue, and that's okay, but I just want to hear what you have to say, because I know you have some good takes that are, at least I find amusing.
Well, I mean, going into this, I said, you know, Ralph has a contempt for his audience, because a lot of his movies, I think, can push that boundary of nonsensical to uncomfortable at times, especially with, like, the rotoscope of Lord of the Rings, or even this movie. But hearing Steve talk about kind of what this movie went through, my opinion changes quite a bit, because I think that initial concept is a much stronger, would have been a probably near his opus when you look at the, you know, animation technologies that were coming through at this time.
Right.
You would have seen an extremely clean movie. I still think it would have had kind of that grime noirish feeling to it, but I think it would have been like his kind of send-off of animated features, because, you know, animation, to a point, you can push boundaries. You know, there's a lot of, like, some of my favorite movies are animated movies. Akira, for crying out loud. Like, that's like one of my top animated movies of all time.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah. But looking at this movie from kind of an objective point of view, hearing what he went through from, you know, producer interference, writer interference, gives me a much different lens towards Ralph, and I almost feel sorry for him in a way.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there would have been a really heartwarming story told through animation, and it's a real shame we didn't get to see that. But I will say to, you know, was it Mike Mancuso?
Yeah.
And the two writers who did this, like, go fuck yourselves, because you guys did irreparable harm to what could have been a really good movie.
Yes.
And animated film is so labor intensive, and I honestly feel sorry for the animators that had to really just put their, you know, blood, sweat, and tears into trying to make something viable. So, as I said, I'm not going to watch this movie anytime in the near future, but I do commend Ralph, you know, just based off those initial pitches and what could have been. I think that would have been a really, really strong send-off, you know, because has he made a movie since this movie?
Not really. In fact, he sort of had a Frank Miller moment with this, where it turned out so awful for him. He wouldn't do anything at all for years, and when he did go back, it was only for TV. In fact, his big project after this was to start an animation school so that he could just get himself away from production.
Good for him. I think that's sad that happened to him, because I think we probably would have gotten a much more successful movie, and we could have gotten more movies from him afterward if not for what happened on this film. But like I said, not going to watch it anytime soon. I wouldn't recommend it, but I don't think that's too much fault of Ralph's. So,
no, I would pretty much agree with everything you said. I think that he and the animators were put in a position by the studio and the producers where there was just no way they could have produced anything much better than what we ended up with. I mean, how could they have ever... When you're put under that kind of pressure and then Bakshi himself is told, we'll sue you if you leave, like, what did they think they were going to end up with?
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone should be a fan of his, and it's totally fine if other people don't love it. I can sort of understand why the animation style Lord of the Rings isn't for everyone, but if you look at something like Wizards or Fire and Ice, which are widely considered seminal works of fantasy animation, I mean, fuck, he worked with Frank Frazetta, you know, like, there's at least proof he's capable of making stuff that isn't awful. Whether or not it's to everyone's taste is a separate question, in my opinion.
I tend to get Ralph Bakshi sometimes mixed up with Don Bluth, who is like, who's like the GOAT,
right?
So like, I'm like, oh, Ralph Bakshi. Oh no, that's the Cool World guy. That's not the Land Before Time guy.
But you see, and that's part of my problem is
American
I think it's
Tail.
tragic that he's like anyone would say he's the Cool World guy because even Bakshi would tell you, yeah, it came out awful. It isn't anything like what I wanted. You know, there's a little. Stevie, if you're ever interested enough to rent it or borrow a copy, or frankly, just see if you can pirate it somewhere. There's a little 22-minute documentary on the Shout Factory Blu-ray release of this film where Bakshi gets to show off some of the artwork he created and talk about what he actually wanted for this movie, and it really underlines what your sentiment was.
Should do some Don Bluth movies.
I don't actually like any of Don Bluth's movies.
You don't like Land Before Time, motherfucker?
I mean, I did when I was 8.
American Tail, man.
Dude.
I did when I was a kid.
It holds up. I'm telling you, man.
It doesn't.
Get the fuck out of here.
No, it's a kid's movie. Come on. It's great from the perspective. If I can put myself back in my 10-year-old brain, yeah.
That movie has so much heart. You got to be shitting me, bro.
You know, come on. Same thing with All Dogs Go to Heaven. I'm sorry. But from an adult
perspective... Yeah, it's not a good movie.
Thank you.
All Dogs Go to Heaven is not the business. I'm not going there. I didn't say it for a reason, okay?
See, but you called him the GOAT, and then you'd admit that even one of his movies was objectively not that good.
I remember seeing you playing fucking Dragon's Lair when we went to the arcade.
Oh, well, you know what? Yeah, the games he worked on are amazing. Yeah, Dragon Slayer is a great game. I love that movie. I mean, I love that game. Dragon Slayer is a movie, but he had nothing to do with that movie.
I think it's Dragon's Lair is the game.
Yeah, you're right. Dragon Slayer is the game. Dragon Slayer is the film. But I love that film. Phil Tippett did the dragon for that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and God, it's what is his name? He was the art curator in Ghostbusters 2. He was on Ally McBeal. God damn it, what is his name? It'll come to me 2 days now, but everyone would know him if they looked him up. He played the knight in Dragon Slayer. But yeah. Anyway, off topic.
Yeah. Steve, any final thoughts before we do ratings?
This movie is a perfect example of what happens when a studio and a producer that don't understand what they bought decide to change it without the creative input of the people who came up with the ideas, and that's the last thing I'll say about it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
Well, not that movie, but, from the song. That one was good. Okay, let's get into ratings. Stevie, on any rating scale you want, what are you going to give Cool World?
Ooh. On any rating scale. This only ever happened to me one time, and it wasn't my fault. This movie is like biting into moldy bread. That's my rating for it. Not 1s out of 10s, but taking a bite of moldy bread.
An unpleasant experience?
Very unpleasant. Wouldn't recommend.
That's a very good... I like that, Stevie. That's succinct. I think that's good.
I'm going to give this movie 3 horny doodles out of 10.
It's better than I thought you'd give it. I appreciate that.
I was going to go 2, but... I tend to give some real piles of shit too. I think movies that are worse than this.
Yeah.
We've done some real fucking bad movies on this podcast. We've reviewed White House Down, which is just like...
I appreciate where you're coming from. You got to contextualize these writings.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to because I always make them up on the spot.
Right.
You know? We reviewed Theodore Rex, which is one of the worst pieces of shit ever.
That's definitely worse than this.
I'd watch this movie any day over Theodore Rex.
1,000,000%.
But this movie sucks ass, and it's extremely horny. It doesn't know what its audience is. It's not for anyone. No one likes this movie for good reason. It indulges really dumb plot contrivances. It sets things up that it never pays off. I think the animation is good sometimes, sure, but also sometimes rather annoying. You know, I don't need like a cavalcade of characters to jump into the foreground and cover the actors for no good reason other than like maybe the people making this movie felt like that was a boring scene, so they just add some chaos. Like I said, it's just chaotic horseshit. There's just like not a lot of substance here, not a lot of comedy. It's weird to see Brad Pitt not very good in a movie because he's very good. What a weird fucking thing this is. Steve, sometimes I ask you if you want to do a podcast, and, you know, I feel like being generous, and I say, whatever you want, Steve. And you say something like Cool World, and I just think, why? Why? We could have done Cop and a Half if you want to torture yourself.
Oh, no, I would much rather watch this than Cop and a Half. It's called Big Dumb Movie. This is the epitome of a Big Dumb movie.
It is. It's actually perfect for this podcast, so I should be thanking you.
I want to do Monkey Bone next. I think it's even worse than this.
I think I need a break from this shit. We just need to do Power Rangers, the movie 2.
Oh, that's definitely going to be better.
Turbo.
Absolutely.
And I'll be satisfied.
I will do Cop and a Half because I have to get you to watch anything worth watching.
No, I watched, there was a movie you asked me to watch, and I watched it.
Yeah, and I owe you Cop and a Half for that. And I can't get you to watch my next, the next thing I want you to watch, I have to do Cop and a Half first. You won't watch anything else. So,
Steve, over to you. On any rating scale you want, what are you going to give this pile of shit?
I'm going to rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10 sexy animated ladies. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'll give pretty much any movie a 1 just because it takes so much work to even produce a film. I think 1's the minimum I can give anything. If 1 is you made a movie, and that's the best I can say, and 10 is perfect, which basically doesn't exist. 5 would be an average. I'm actually going to give this movie a 4. It still becomes below average for me because they fucked up too much of it, and I'm really angry at how they ruined it, but I don't find it completely unwatchable. I find it largely unwatchable, I'll admit that, but I like enough of the animated stuff that I will revisit it like once every quarter to half decade to see that. There's like 20 minutes of it that I like, including the backdrops and some of Bakshi's stuff, but yeah, that's the best I can do. 4 sexy animated ladies out of 10 is the best rating I can give this, even with credit. I do think that anybody's opinion of it needs to be fairly metered in regards to how much of the badness gets aimed at Bakshi and the animators, considering they really had almost no control over what it ended up being, and Bakshi got trapped on the movie with threat of a lawsuit. Anyone who wants to see what he's capable of, whether they like it or not, go watch Wizards and Fire and Ice and American Pop. I'd say go see those 3. If you don't like them, you don't like them, but at least you'll see an example of what Bakshi can produce when he's really working at his level and isn't being hindered by morons who don't understand what the fuck they're doing in the first place. That's about it. That's how I'd end it.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Stevie, you are a key member on an amazing podcast, and I'm hoping you can tell the listeners what that podcast is, where they can find you, and what you do over there.
Yeah. You can find Spoilers podcast on pretty much anywhere. Apple, iTunes, have it on Spotify. We have a lot of videos on YouTube and pretty much reviewing new movies, old movies, TV shows. Recently, we just did a companion piece where we did The Emperor's New Groove and the documentary that went into the making of that called The Sweatbox. Check those out. Our logo looks like a big cereal bowl that spells out spoilers. And that is a lot of fun. And Korey, you're a part of that. We have a lot of fun on that. And yeah, check it out.
I have a follow-up question.
Yep.
Pat, what's your favorite breakfast cereal?
Man, I'm a pretty...
So many good ones to choose from.
There's a lot. That would be my answer. There's too many to choose from.
Yeah, I'm a pretty old school dude. I'm a pretty old school guy. I'd say Frosted Flakes.
That's a good one.
It's the easiest one.
My brother would probably give the same answer.
There's so many good ones. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is out there.
That's my daughter's favorite.
See, I was like the only kid on earth that didn't like the sugary one. I'd actually choose Cheerios. I'd get Kix. The only one with sugar on it I actually ever liked was Frosted Mini Wheats. I understand I'm a weirdo.
Dude, Frosted Mini Wheats are so fucking good.
They are though, right?
Oh my god. I want some right now.
Me
dude.
too. That was my favorite. If my mother gave me the opportunity to get a sugar cereal, that was always the one I went for.
Steve, do you want to join me for a bowl of cereal?
I kind of do, actually.
Yeah, let's do that. I think it's time to wrap up this episode. Thank you guys for being here. Steve, you haven't been on for a while.
Thank you both.
I appreciate you making the trip out. Stevie, I appreciate you coming on and kind of doing the two Steve thing again like we did on our Ghost podcast. That was a fun one. This was also a fun one. I've had a lot of fun here. If you, the listeners, want to talk to me, you can write in. You can email bigdumbmovie@gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram, Big Dumb Movie Podcast. Follow us there. Give this video on YouTube a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Even if you don't listen on YouTube, to kind of help get the YouTube channel to grow. But the best thing you can do for this podcast is leave us a positive rating and written review on Apple Podcasts. So please do that if you're so inclined. That really helps us grow. If our podcast grows, I will make more. People message me all the time basically saying, make more.
Please do feel free to comment that I'm either an asshole or an idiot or both. We've gotten plenty of those already, and I'm used to it.
No more of those. I disagree, Steve. Because when we do episode 150 or whatever, when I read the comments, I don't want them to be all Steve hate. So leave a nice comment.
You shouldn't invite me on.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Right? From some of our co-hosts, I'm sure.
Or if you do Josh. That's it. Yeah,
right?
That's what he said.
Oh, he's my favorite too, aside from Stevie, obviously.
So that was an episode. Thank you so much for listening. We love you, and good night.
Good night.